last was Wednesday.
Good evening and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee meeting of the September 9th, 2019. We are using Facebook live streaming on Facebook Live. There's no live interaction, but you may leave comments. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. And I hope you all noticed our new website. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting packages? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter circulated before this council which has not been publicly circulated? We will be voting by electronic ballot on all matters except administrative. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? All right, CAO Phillips, could you please take the roll call?
Thank you, Worship. We have a full attendance this evening by council. In addition, we have department heads in attendance. We have Deputy Chief Daryl Brown here in place of the Chief, who's on vacation. To my left, we have Solicitor Matart and Recording Secretary Jennifer West. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So you have before you the proposed agenda. Are there any additions or deletions? If I could have a motion to accept the proposed agenda. Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. You've had the meeting, the minutes for the meeting of July the 8th Council Advisory Committee for review. They've been distributed. Are there any errors or omissions with these minutes? If not, the minutes are approved. If there are, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red and the approved minutes will be added to the electronic file meeting. Are there any errors? None? Moving on. All right, to our presenters, thank you for appearing this evening to make your presentation. You will be provided with 10 minutes to make your presentations, followed by questions from council. Your report is public record and will be considered by council during our new business part of the meeting. So first up is Kings Remo, Dan Stovall, welcome. Glad to see that you're no worse for the wear. You're looking good, and I see that we're going to be talking about a hurricane preparedness response plan. Very timely. So the floor is yours, and dazzle us.
I'll try not to take 10 minutes per plan.
Okay.
Oops, sorry.
We're used to hurricanes, so don't worry about, kicking stuff around.
Oops. Which one is it? 4A.
Maybe you're behind it, Dan. Jennifer usually puts a
Oh.
cover page up. No, just, there you go.
Scroll down.
Just
Oh.
scroll down, yeah. There you go.
Okay, this is different. Mayor Snow, Council, thank you for giving me this opportunity to move forward with building a safe and resilient Kings County with two more of our emergency management support plans that were developed through the Planning Committee. The first of these plans, there's two plans, and no laughter with the second, is the Heat Advisory and Response System. This was brought about by the concerns of public health systems and looking at the number of rising temperature issues we have, the number of deaths that took place in Quebec, although different environment. And we did have 5 heat advisories, heat warnings that came out this last summer. The other plan, which might generate more discussion, is the Hurricane Preparedness and Response Plan. As a support plan, the Heat Advisory and Response System, looking at projections, Kings County was selected and Volin asked to come up with this plan because of the fact that it's one of the most intense areas as we look at time progression for climate change, that in Cumberland County. And so we're looking at increased heat. We've had a number of issues, not as bad as actually the year before when we had heat waves up to 41 degrees with humidex, but it's still something to consider the safety of our residents with heat. The plan was put together with respect to paramount to public safety in the case of extreme heat events. And again, with all of our plans, so that anyone can be pulled off the shelf for all of our planning staff, they're a very structured format. They're all the same format with respect to the setup of them, with a very big part of them public awareness. The media awareness program, even through this last incident, is still growing, and so those are a big focus for us. The actual plan itself recognizes the need for identifying when health of residents is threatened, Communicating with the public, always a big part, and even this last instance, what we're doing, communicating, coordinating with provincial and local agencies, as well as mobilizing resources and initiating actions to rectify any issues that may come upon us, and employing what we call the incident command system that's been in effect in Canada since 2002 as a system to manage emergency incidents and actual planned events such as the Apple Blossom Festival. The objectives will be to provide information on what precautions the public can take when temperatures reach extreme levels, understanding we always call comfort centers emergency shelters, but what do we have in the way of cooling centers now? And cooling centers, comfort centers may not necessarily be in cooling centers, but we can talk about libraries, malls, and understanding those facilities we can use as cooling centers for the public. Community response and coordinating an overall community response from a regional perspective. Understanding vulnerable populations are cared for. Understanding is we're setting up in the process of setting up a vulnerable persons registry. More and more populations are living at home longer instead of going to seniors' homes, and where those population bases are. Providing the cooling centers when appropriate, and as well as employing and activating our regional emergency plan. We've set this up for community engagement and mobilization across 5 phases. The pre-seasonal activities and the community outreach. Community outreach is ongoing 12 months a year. But the actual leading up into and putting out flyers as part of water bills and everywhere we can to get the public aware of increasing heat as we get into July and August timeframes. Heat advisories are put out by Environment Canada, Environment and Climate Change Canada, as an early notification. Heat warnings, of which we experienced 5, did the press release, did the media release, used the planning committee appropriately in this draft plan to reach out to Nova Scotia Health, EHS services, and police services, and I'm happy to report over the 5 incidents of heat that we had. Sadly, the only issue were 3 locked dogs in cars, of which were rescued. But there are issues that can come up. We track the number of increased emergency department visits as well. The heat wave is something that's going to carry on much longer and may have significant more impact. And a demobilization is not just closing the office and leaving. Understanding the impacts of heat to the public can be long-lasting. What can be felt today may not actually generate impacts on heart and problems of a week or so later. So we have to understand when we demobilize how we're tracking the health of our residents. Skipping into my favorite topic, one of the councillors in Wolfville asked me why. I was from the reverse side looking up through the eye when I was my previous life. I actually sailed through the center of a hurricane, which was an interesting time coming up the other side. This is the Hurricane Preparedness and Response Plan. The issue with hurricanes, and we preach it and preach it, is the fact that if you experience something every year, you're going to get used to experiencing it every year. Nova Scotia is in a hurricane belt. What people don't realize, September 10th is only the peak of the hurricane season. The season continues until the end of November. We had Hurricane Juan, which was very unique for the valley because it didn't impact us. It came in perpendicular, did a lot of devastation and damage in the Atlantic coast. There were 8 deaths, 10 days without power, infrastructure of hospitals, and a lot of critical infrastructure destroyed. Then the next one for us, we've had some storms, but post-tropical storm Arthur was in 2014. That did impact us here. I'm part of a fire department out cutting trees, clearing roads, not as much as what we just had that was the whole swath of Nova Scotia. And so it's something that's not resonant in people's minds to understand this is an ongoing threat for us in Atlantic Canada. Not to the extent of a Category 5 that stalls for 36 hours over the Bahamas, but what we just saw of a Category 1, and Juan was a Category 2, can still cause, as we've seen today with long-term power outages, significant damage. I mentioned this just to show where we are today on September 9th, 1 day shy of the peak season. And the historic side for Atlantic Canada is the fact that we actually see more hurricane and tropical cyclone impacts in the Maritimes in the latter part of the season. So September, October, November may have actually more impact. Again, as with all our plans, this will provide information and guidelines from which to follow to initially prepare and also how to deal with the impacts after a hurricane. We cannot stop an environmental impact of a hurricane coming, but we can prepare to actually go through the recovery process of what's going now. And the mobilization across the province is incredible of what's taking place. This is in all municipal governments. When we first heard about this, and using the current one as an example, we had a situation briefing, 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. made the decision to activate the Regional Emergency Center at Municipality of Kings building on 181 Colebrook Village. And we set up a shift right through until 5 o'clock yesterday and finished up with deactivating, but I still have on my phone the actual hotline, getting that information out, answering people's questions. And some people are saying, what's the weather like? And I'm talking to people, other people don't have internet. When's the power estimates? I will say for all the people here and those listening, Nova Scotia Power, it was a number of years ago that they put out power estimate restoration of 6 hours. And in the wintertime, okay, I'm not going to activate a comfort center, things will be back up. 6 hours go by, they just click refresh, another 6 hours. So Nova Scotia EMO talked to them a while ago, and now it's like trying to have an actual ideal, realistic timeline to set expectations instead of just putting 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours. It allows us to be more reactive in the EMO world to prepare and set up our comfort centers. Again, the same structure, the big part, public education awareness. We put out press releases in advance of the hurricane coming, and constant press releases were being released. The media and information going to Nova Scotia EMO Provincial Coordination Center. I got my airtime with K-Rock and news media releases as well to make sure we could get the information out. There will always be some filters of the information not making it. Somebody said, well, I don't have a radio. That's part of your emergency kit. Do you have a radio with batteries? Do you have a hand crank radio? And get the information. I will say my emergency email notification system cranked up by having one extra 100 subscribers in a one-day period. And so that for a subscription service across the county, yes, it's a population of 60,000, but I send out now over 880 emails, which I know get auto-forwarded by a lot of people. So the information is growing for our county to be aware of what's taking place. When a disaster hits, working closely with the information officer, all the messaging approved by the ECC managers, we work closely with having pre-scripted messaging, and that's in a lot of our plans so that we can pull something up quick, get the information out. There's issues we have to work through. Some of the messaging, there was an individual who posted, oh, it's upgraded to a Category 2. I will say, hand on heart, it was Category 1. CBC and others said it was Category 2. Category 1 is 119 to 153 kilometers an hour of sustained winds. Winds touching on 158, 159 is just a touch on that wind, but it doesn't make a Category 2. And so there was some false reporting, and people, oh my God, it's strengthened to a Category 2, and it's going to impact. It was always a Category 1. The winds along the Atlantic coast, max winds were 145 kilometers an hour. Gusts, we had a recorded 93 kilometers an hour in Greenwood. Kentville Weather Station recorded 112 millimeters of rain. So if you ever see a track of a hurricane, the left-hand side of the track is always more rain, the right-hand track is always more wind. For both these plans, as we move forward with our development of our planning system for our Kings County, our regional emergency organization, we have a structured timeline that we've started moving forward. The last week was the Committee of the Whole with the Town of Wolfville, and tonight I'm here before you to put forward plans with a couple of draft motions.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
If I can take a plug on public safety, how many councillors have a battery charger for their phone? 2. And I'm overprotective. Solar power. So, and Amazon, there's a number of different ones. I have 5 of them. My wife laughs at me. But they're in my emergency kit and other things. And most public outreach, community outreach people all say they're coming to my house. But these, the small little ones or whatever, this will charge my iPhone 8 times, my iPad 3 times.
Okay.
So it's something to think about as a counselor who's out on the road doing work with the community in any type of disaster.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Ballin.
Thank you. A good plan and very timely. Where was the warming center the last 24 hours, 48 hours? We had no power at our home, and a lot of people didn't. Was there one, or was
we had a number of comfort centers. They were odd, and I hadn't heard directly from anything from here, so they were set up at a number of different municipal offices. The Town of Wolfville, Municipality of Kings, further north in Lake Paul, Lake George, Blackrock Community Hall, Canning. So we had a number around, and the whole reassessment will begin tomorrow, and I'll reach out to your CAO and see what we need, because your one here that just wasn't activated was the fire hall if need be. And the difference for clarification of a comfort center and emergency shelter, which we did use. Comfort center is staffed by volunteers. Drop in, charge your phone, get a drink, get information. So I have the contacts to all those comfort centers. One voice, one message. The same message gets out to everybody. When we need to evacuate people and set up a shelter, first call from the emergency center, Red Cross. Come in Red Cross, they set up a shelter, and they bring in the cots as necessary depending on how many people are being evacuated.
So people were evacuated from some residences Saturday night, so they
Yes.
went to the fire
Fire
department, I
hall,
think?
Yes.
Yeah.
And by the time I was gone for a few hours from the emergency center, when I came back in, it had been a brief period of time, correct me if I'm wrong, CIO, but it was there for a while, and then it was deactivated because people found other places to reside. For the most part, residents, when you ask them if they want to evacuate, I've got a friend, and they go, and so you have to monitor, and you will evacuate if it need be, but for most people, they'll go to another residence or somewhere else.
So if it just, perhaps in hindsight, maybe if the comfort center was at the County Kings building, maybe that needed to be promoted or something.
Oh, and it was, I guess.
Awareness through. 'cause-
Yeah, and we went out through media press release this morning, and I was on the news, so I'll work on those. The list goes out at 9 o'clock to Nova Scotia EMO, and also then gets promulgated on 211. So there's a whole education piece, I agree, Councillor, insofar as increasing awareness about the active comfort centers.
And again, I'm referring back to Saturday as far as the awareness being created, not now.
No, even now, because I'm without power, how many people are without power? So there's still a number of people without power, and the estimates are 11 p.m. Tuesday and maybe even 11 a.m. Wednesday for some places.
Okay, thank you.
you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a question, I just have a comment. So I just wanted to say thank you for your dedication and your consistency, and your messages are always bang on, and that's my go-to. When I see the messages come from you, I know that those are the ones that are the most founded. So thank you for everything that you do. It's very much appreciated by all
Thank
of
you
us.
very much.
So
Thank you.
welcome.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have the Kentville Business Community with Zach Best and Wade Tebow.
Thank you, Mayor Snow and Council. We've got a lot to get through, so I'll dive right into our quarterly report. Over the last few months, through the spring and summer, we've had lots of events go on. We had our Spring into Kentville, which saw 38 businesses contribute to a prize worth over $2,200. And this year's winner was Brenda Wellwood. We had lots of fun with Jeff Good from Treats presenting the winner for this year. We also had our Festival of Flowers, which was one of our most exciting Festival of Flowers to date. We had increased public engagement with a new voting system that got more people involved from the public, bringing them downtown to look at the flowers and actually vote on which was their favorite. We also created multiple videos to promote the event, and this year's winner was a new business, which was Girlature Home and Decor. So it was great to see the new businesses catching on, some of the older businesses all coming in to participate. We're also going to be working with the Royal LePage again this year for Walk a Mile in Our Shoes event coming up in a couple weeks. We'll be hiding a red shoe, red high heels in multiple downtown businesses again to continue getting more people downtown. And KBC Board is also putting in a team to walk in
nice.
this year's event, so it should be lots of fun. In August, on the 24th, our 5th annual Kentville Multicultural Festival was held, and it was our largest event to date. We had 12 performers and over 50 vendors of food, merchandise, art, and info, and we had an estimated attendance of around 2,000 people throughout the day on Saturday. Just a huge thank you to all our sponsors and volunteers that made this event possible, and it really was a great event. And during the event, we asked some of the people who came out how they heard about our festival, just to do some research for our sake moving forward and events going forward. And just wanted to note that over 37% of the people we asked saw it on Facebook and were engaged that way. Word of mouth was the second highest, and then signage. We also sent out a survey to the businesses, but also the public, and engaged their feeling of the event. 75% of respondents said that they visited Kentville retail locations during their time here on that Saturday. 95% of respondents said they would come back again next year. And some of the recommendations we got were more seating and consider having performances go later into the evening. So really, as far as recommendations go, those are great for us because it just means people want more of the event. We had some great pictures here, and I encourage to see the video we put out today on the event on our Facebook page. We also introduced a new KBC Dollars program. It's a new kind of shopping incentive to bring people downtown. They'll be given out to specific groups that we may want to entice to downtown Kemptville, but we also use them with some of our contests, giveaways, things like that. They're basically $5 coupons that can be used as cash at participating businesses, and we have over 40 businesses signed up to participate, so we're very proud about that. Our facade program is still ongoing. We actually had a few projects that decided not to go forward this year, so we opened up funding again for a short period of time, and now we do have a total of 10 projects that are planned to go forward this year. So we'll be looking to see some new updates here very soon. These are the 3 completed projects to date. One was, of course, the mural project at Main Street Station with the Maritime Express cider, building on a Webster Court, and, of course, Bake Me Happy Bakery and Cafe on Webster Street. We also just wanted to welcome our 2 newest board members, Jamie Corbin and Hillary Webb. We're very excited to have them on board. Just a quick update on our strategic plan. During our AGM in June, we introduced our new strategic plan, and some of the highlights include increased emphasis on entrepreneurs. It's refined and focused. We still have our 5 key functional areas, but it's more concise goals and objectives, and it's very comprehensive but also achievable for us. And you can see our full strategic plan on our website. Communication. So the creation of communication plan is the #1 priority for us going into this year and next. A preliminary look of phase 1 was announced at our AGM in June, and it's harnessing the power of the internet to communicate. The preliminary goals are to create content that is both informative and entertaining, but have the resources and effort put into it to make sure what is communicated stands out and will be heard. The work on this plan is ongoing. This summer we've been dedicated to testing out different forms of communication to see what works and what doesn't for Kemptville businesses and the community. Early results for us have shown that videos have been the most effective in reaching a large audience through social media. Regular photos or infos that we post through our channels, average reach between 500 and 1,000 with max reach of 2,600, but videos really reach a lot more people, with an average reach of 4,000 to 8,000 and some reaching over 23,000. So all this research we've been doing this summer will be taken into account and put into our communication plan going forward. And it also leads into what we have planned next, which is our special project for 2019, Fight Wade Up.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor. First of all, in our funding agreement this year, we have $25,000 in special project funding that's available based on council approval. So a few months ago, the board basically we approved to create the Special Projects Committee, which I want to thank for their commitment to this proposal and the work that we did to brainstorm and going forward. Based on the funding agreement and looking at Schedule A and what KBC is supposed to do for the town based on our funding, this project that we came up with, ultimately we address over probably half of what our services are supposed to be, based on providing local area business marketing promotion, based on basically finalizing our long-term strategic plan, collaborating on the town on specific projects, including the branding strategy, and creating a marketing portfolio. The project that we've decided to go forward with is kind of 2-part, and based on this proposal, it has that out, and I'm not going to read the proposal word for word. First aspect of it is basically 2 videos that we will have a contractor do to create the content to do the videos. One of the videos will be based on a fall harvest visit to town, highlighting the pumpkin people. When you come to town, go to the new skate park, take your bikes to the gorge, but also in downtown. You can visit the local restaurants, the bars, whether you have family, the other amenities that are downtown. And then secondly, a holiday shopping video highlighting downtown Kentville as a holiday shopping destination. You don't have to go to the city or shop on Amazon to avoid lines. You can come into downtown Kentville, experience exceptional service and value right here. So those are the two right now. The formats of those videos would be, for both of them, would have a 15-second mobile format and then another 30-second format, so that depending on the channel that we distribute those on, they're appropriate. The other piece is that we will determine a target audience, whether that's families, whether that's couples, professional couples with no children, that type of thing, tailoring those to specific target audiences, and really push the promotion of Kentville, try to change that perception that old perception that may be there of Kentville, show what we have, highlight what we have, and basically shameless self-promotion. The second part would be, we would look at doing a number of reusable bags, KBC branded bags, that would either be distributed to businesses in a mix of residential homes, so they would have our logo on it. One, to promote shopping in downtown Kentville, obviously, and two, to prevent reusable plastics and bring it up kind of to today's standards. And those bags would also be used in these videos that we're talking about to bring on that consistent message to downtown Kentville and what it is that we want to portray. The also kind of third aspect of this overall project is a brainstorming session that involves the Business Community Council, the board, kind of the greater public at whole, in creating what the image and message that we want to spread about Kentville, and determining that first before we go through with sharing and distributing these videos. The other piece is that we'll also have still content that we can use throughout the year through our channels and town as well, and use that material going forward. We feel that this project is probably one of the ones that the committee as a whole, with all the options that we talked about, is most realistic based on the timeline that we have, budget-wise, and what KBC is really supposed to be doing, and us promoting downtown Kentville and our business community. So that's, as you can see from the proposal, that's what the committee came up with. That's what the board approved to come to you tonight with, and we hope you see the value in that as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for our members from KBC? Councillor Maxwell.
I just have one question. I think they're
Yep.
both really good ideas. When we talk about downtown businesses,
Yep.
are we including the businesses away from the downtown core? So there's some over on the north side, there's businesses at the edge of town in the east, and at the edge of town in the west. So I'm just wondering if we're being inclusive there and including everybody, or if it's just downtown Center Square block.
Our mandate has typically been the downtown core, which typically stretches from basically the needs on that end to the Ultramar on the other end, and up to, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but like Valley Tire, that area. Foodland, I guess. So that's typically the triangle that encompasses the downtown. That's typically where we focus. That is with the resources that we have now, that is where we can realistically accommodate.
So up to the Foodland.
Up to the Foodland.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any further questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Great presentation. Thank you for that. I think
Thanks,
they're
Kate.
both great ideas. When we talk about collaborating and brand recognition and increased engagement, just wondering if, I know you're engaging with the business owners in the community, but are you engaging with any of just the residents in the community that don't necessarily own businesses, and sort of finding out what some of their feedback is?
So we've sent a survey out when we had this idea to go forward to the distribution list that we have. 96%, Zach, strongly agreed with this project,
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons we're
Yeah.
forward here tonight.
Yes.
So yes, we want that feedback from our
Yeah, that
not really
inclusive
membership,
piece.
but the community itself.
Yeah, for sure.
As far as residents, absolutely, when we come time to do the brainstorming sessions, it'll be
Okay.
a public event. Come, share your ideas. We want to make sure that the message that we're going to
Okay.
share about Kentville and downtown Kentville is what the collective community wants
Okay.
us to be.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks for your contribution. That's great.
Excellent. Councillor Pulsfer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Wade. That was a great presentation, and your idea for the special project, I think, is quite innovative and something different. You mentioned the videos, so how will the public find the videos? Where will they be distributed, or
Mhm.
on?
Yeah,
Yes,
so
or
based
how?
on the research that we've kind of done this summer, and like Zach said, with videos online and the reach that they get, the primary focus will be sharing them on social media and online through Google Ads. That is where really investment-wise, ROI, that's where we're going to see that. We can really target the audience that we share those videos with based on who we want to see them on those platforms, so that's where they'll be focused.
Right.
We don't have the resources to share them on mainstream television media,
No.
so.
No, of course not. And also the bags that you're
Yep.
mentioning. So how do they get distributed to households?
That in itself is still yet to be determined. The committee kind of has to determine where the bang for buck is going to be, whether we're going to do that in the town, whether we want to be strategic and say we want to distribute those in towns outside of the town to try to encourage
Right.
outside areas to come to downtown to shop. We do know that a certain percentage will be distributed into downtown businesses to share, to have that, and those bags will be part of the video for that overall message. But that's something that committee will reconvene afterwards to really determine. We have quotes based on, we don't have the exact type of bag picked out yet.
Right.
We have multiple quotes, and that's where the numbers in the proposal have come from. The committee will kind of reconvene, decide on an actual bag, and go forward with what the distribution channels are going to be.
Okay.
We know we want to be a mix of businesses in downtown and then residential homes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
And next up, we have the Valley Regional Enterprise Network quarterly report with CEO Jennifer Tufts. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Thank you so much for allowing me to provide a Valley Run quarterly update this evening. I thought I'd provide you with an overview of last year's fiscal results, as well as highlight what we're working on in Q1 and Q2 of this fiscal year. So I just wanted to start again by saying what our mandate is. So when I think about what a regional enterprise network is and does, I can explain it with 3 words. We plan and we inform and we connect. So we develop, implement, and monitor a regional economic development strategy. We inform partners and stakeholders about regional opportunities and challenges and about our local business climate in our region. And we cultivate close working relationships with our businesses and key partners to support the retention and expansion of existing businesses and attraction of new businesses. So this is our 3-year strategic framework. I've shared it pretty much every time I've given a presentation, so I won't go into too much detail other than to say we're in year 2 of our 3-year strategic plan. So next year we will be updating our strategic plan, and but as of now, this is sort of this is our overarching mandate for our organization. So we'll talk a little bit about our achievements from last fiscal year. I know some of you weren't able to attend our annual general meeting, so I just thought I'd provide you with some updates. So we had 4 main activities that we conducted last fiscal year. One was our Valley Manufacturing Task Force, our Regional Marketing Initiative, our Business Now program, and our Connector program. So in terms of the Valley Manufacturing Task Force, we continue to engage with leading manufacturers in our region. This is essentially the process that we used for the task force. We launched it in August of 2018 with a kick-off event that helped us gain consensus on the top 3 issues related to that sector. In September and October, we collected quantitative and qualitative data. We conducted site visits, and we conducted a third-party survey. So I wanted to share with you some of the results of this survey that we conducted. And if any of you are interested in the full report, I can give you access to that. But 9 manufacturers completed this survey. The 9 manufacturers employ 2,542 full-time equivalent employees with a total combined annual revenue of $245 million. So it's very significant. And then these 9 manufacturers will need to fill 604 full-time equivalent hard-to-fill vacancies over the next 5 years. So our regional marketing initiative, we are working in partnership with the Annapolis Valley Chamber of Commerce and the Valley Business Leaders Initiative to create one comprehensive marketing campaign for the region. We formed the partnership to help promote the region from a business and labor force attraction, residential attraction, and tourism standpoint. We engaged a consultant to develop the brand, creative, and products for this initiative, and he's currently working on those now. For our Business Now program, it provided one-on-one customized supports to businesses of all sizes across industries in our region. We worked with 67 Business Now clients. 8 of those were community businesses or community enterprises. 31 were startups, and 28 of those were existing businesses. Through the Manufacturing Task Force, we are engaging with 13 manufacturers in our region. We had 18 additional business support meetings that would help our Business Now clients. So in total, we actually reached 97 businesses last fiscal year. Are we able to show the video? If not, that's okay. That's okay. It's not a big deal. We did a testimonial video for some of the businesses that we worked with, and I'll make sure to give you access to those who weren't able to attend the annual general meeting. So for our Connector program, year 1 has been very successful for us. In the first year, we worked with 37 connectees. So connectees are the recent grads, the newcomers, migrants, immigrants to our region. And we worked with 23 connectors who are the business and community leaders in our region that actually have networks to share for these individuals. We made 13 matches, so we matched 13 connectees with 13 connectors in our region, and 5 of those connectees found employment. So the success rate is very good for year 1. The program hosted 16 events in our region and attended 17 additional events to promote the program. And I'll tell you more about the results that we're already getting in Q1 and Q2. So now we can talk about our current fiscal year. So again, I want to highlight some of the key priorities that we're working on. We continue to work on the Valley Manufacturing Task Force. We created 2 action teams, based on the 3 challenge areas that were identified by our manufacturers. So we have a labor action team and we have an energy action team. Last year, those action teams created action plans that identified activities, and we're currently working on those right now. I can also share those action plans with you so you have a little bit more detailed information about those. We are holding a series of design thinking workshops with 2 other regional enterprise networks for manufacturers throughout the province so that they can access a new way of thinking when it comes to their processes and their procedures. And there will be one held in September in Kentville. Our energy action team is starting to develop a request for proposals to create a regional energy study. This will identify energy issues that affect the competitiveness of the manufacturers in our area. We want to quantify the current and future energy demand, assess energy costs, and then make recommendations for next steps for the energy action team. So when we met with all the manufacturers and they came to a consensus on the top 3 issues in our area, in terms of energy, the big issues were around reliability and cost of energy. So we want to dig a little bit deeper into those and figure out how we can help further. And then we are currently organizing a Manufacturing Your Future showcase. So one of the things that we heard from the manufacturers is that they want to be able to promote the opportunities related to the manufacturing sector. And how do you make that cool? Manufacturing isn't necessarily what it was in the 80s and 90s. So what we're doing is we're pulling together the manufacturers to have a showcase component, but then we're also pulling together all the career developers and career practitioners so that they can understand the opportunities that are related to the manufacturing sector in our area. So I mentioned the Regional Marketing Initiative, so we continue to work on that. We recently held 3 community workshops to gather feedback into our discovery process of this initiative. We held one in Windsor, we held one in Kentville, and we also held one in Middleton. We will also be developing an online survey so that the people who were not able to attend those workshops can also have their say into the process. And then next steps will be developing the creative and then developing the products to go along with it. So we want to create a website, we want to create a lot of materials so that anybody within our region who may have a recruitment effort or whatnot can use these products and tools. Our manufacturers will use it, and then we can tailor the content that actually gets created for each of these different products. So our Business Now program, currently we are working with 47 businesses already, served since April 1, and 30 of those are actually brand new, unique businesses for us. We're in the process of developing a customer relationship management tool so that we can have the great data that comes behind all of this. We will be developing a toolkit for our business clients so that we can easily hand them the information, not just electronically, but physically. We will be hosting a social shift screening at the Valley Drive-In with a pop-up market on September 18th. We're holding a business expo in Windsor on September 27th, so it'll be very similar to the one that was held here in February in Kentville. We are holding a Business Connections Forum on November 14th with additional partners like the Valley Women's Business Network. This will really be a business-to-business mentoring event. And then we would like to do another business climate study. We haven't done one for a few years, so we're hoping to do that in early winter. So our connector program is, as of April 1, working with 16 connectees, so that's 53 in total, 9 connectors, 32 in total. And already this fiscal year, there's been 1 job found, so that makes 6 in total. So it's about a 40% job success rate with matches to jobs found. The connector program will be participating at the Greenwood Rexpo on September 14th. They're also a part of the Social Shift event. They're participating in the part-time job fair that's happening on September 20th. They're doing another How to Network workshop. They did that last fiscal year and it was extremely successful at Acadia. And then they are also participating in the Business Connections Forum on November 14th. So we've placed a very high emphasis on communications this fiscal year. We will be developing a communications plan, and we will be formalizing our processes of engagement with our funding partners and our stakeholders, with a goal of building dynamic working relationships when it's all said and done, because that's really where we want to get at. I also wanted to leave you with some of the opportunities that are ahead for us that may or may not have been identified in the business plan or the strategic plan at the time. We all know things percolate off to the side that you're not aware of when you develop a plan. So we want to meet with each of the municipalities to see if there are any targeted Business Now visits that you'd like us to do. So whether there are any major employers in your area or key businesses that you'd like us to do a Business Now visit with to gain a little bit deeper understanding into, we would love to do that. We know labor force is a key challenge for a lot of our businesses in our area. So we want to work through a group called Valley Stars to start exploring the development of a strategy to address those labor force issues. So there are a number of employment services organizations that sit on that Valley Stars group that will assist us with that process. We want to make sure we're developing investment readiness tools so that when we do have a site selector come or an investor, we're ready for them and have the tools in place and the information to back it up. So we've had a lot of conversations with Nova Scotia Business Inc. And they're very open to sharing a lot of the documentation that they have and the proposal formats that they use so that we can use that here and tailor it with our own information. And then we will also have some of those tools developed as a result of the Regional Marketing Initiative. So the Michelin Towns Initiative is a project that we will be able to share soon. So stay tuned for more information, but it's really an idea that came out of the annual International Michelin Cities Conference that happens annually, which Mayor Snow was able to be a part of. And so stay tuned for, as soon as we can share that information, we'll do so. And then finally, the STAR program. We're exploring a program that would provide an assessment of tourism development in our region. It would provide an asset inventory and create a strategic plan at the end of it for tourism development in our region. So we're very high level exploring with that right now, so stay tuned for more information about that as well. And that's it. My presentation was a little bit shorter because of the video, so that's okay. I'll share it around afterwards for sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Are there any questions for Jennifer? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Jennifer. I like the Valley Manufacturer Task Force and the 396 employees that will be required out of the 604. And, so in terms of when you talk about the action plans that are being built around that with activities, are then you talking about like the Michelin Town initiatives and things like that? Are those sort of all part and parcel of that?
Yeah,
Because that seems like a lot of people to try and get into the workforce.
Yeah, it's the Michelin Towns was a very separate piece to the whole action plans that were developed. It sort of happened kind of towards the end of the action plans being developed.
Right.
But we do see it very much a part of the Valley Manufacturing Task Force. So,
Okay.
so it would sort of be running parallel to the activities that happen with the action plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you. Very,
Yeah, no
very
problem.
thorough. Thank you.
Councillor Pulsper.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. It's very informative. I do have one question, though.
Sure.
Under Business Now program, one of the items in your list is social shift at the Valley Drive-In pop-up
Yes.
market. What is that? I was curious.
Yeah, no problem. So we're hosting at the Valley Drive-In a screening of the movie called The Social Shift. It's a
Okay.
documentary of two individuals who drove across the country and promoted what social enterprise is. So we're screening that at the drive-in it's open to the public for anybody. But ahead of that, we're holding a pop-up market. So really just sort of a trade show-esque market feel prior to the screening of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Are there any further questions? All right, thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and next up is Arts and Culture in the Annapolis Valley with Bob Hainstock. Oh, and Sasha.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick intro to Bob's presentation.
Okay.
Earlier this year, Council granted to KEGS, that's the Kentville Art Gallery Society, and Hardware Gallery a 6-month extension on its original 15-month lease in the Calkin building. As the extension of this lease neared its end, KEGS was approached with a proposal for a potential future development. Currently, Hardware Gallery operates on a non-profit basis with a volunteer board of directors who govern the ongoings of the project. Exhibiting artists are selected democratically through a jury process, with jury members changing with every season of new exhibits. The proposal put forward to KEGS changes this model to a cooperative-based operation. KEGS has decided that this new model appears to be the best mode through which to continue its operations for various reasons, the most pressing of which being the increased ability of the gallery to provide a more commercially viable rent to its landlord. Here to present to Council on behalf of KEGS and any further groups that may develop, I'd like to welcome Annapolis Valley artist and member of several successful cooperatives throughout the years, Bob Hainstock. He will continue this presentation that will outline in detail the structure of the proposed future of an art gallery in Kentville.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sasha. Mayor Snow, councilors, things have changed since I've been here last time. And what is this in front of me? Anyway, we'll try and follow along. We're really pleased to present to you two requests this evening. The first one concerns the revamping of the gallery operation into a cooperative model, as Sasha pointed out. And the second regarding the potential use of the second floor of the Culkin building. Our priority tonight is the gallery space. The second priority is the second floor. We will get a little bit more specific in a minute. The gallery, should I be pressing any buttons here? Or is everybody
From a microphone, you're good, Bob?
okay?
Do you have slides that you're going through? Like?
I do not.
Okay.
I just have a good monotonous voice that'll put you guys to sleep very quickly, or slowly and painfully. We are looking at a model where there would be 10 to 12 full-time artist members and another possibly 6 part-time members as part of our cooperative. It's based on a model that is very popular across Canada with co-op galleries. The most recent one that I was part of was the Pier Gallery in Lunenburg, of which I was a member for 15 years, and also the Viewpoint Gallery in Halifax, of which I was a founding member of that. It basically answers two of the most pressing questions for struggling galleries. Operating capital or operating revenue and staffing. Under a co-op gallery, each member pays an annual fee. It can range, in our case, it's around $100 for a full-time membership per month. The part-time members pay roughly $60 a month. Everyone is expected to sit approximately 1 or 2 days a month. In other words, to give us the staffing to operate at least 5, but 6 days, 7 days in high season. So that basically, before we even open our doors, gives us the assurance of meeting our commitments for rent and utilities and a good, strong marketing program, which in our case is absolutely critical to the success, whether it's hardware gallery or whatever the name might become. We have to generate more traffic through our doors and present a type of art that brings people back. We have to have artists that are of a consistent and established status to make that happen. Our members will be selected from applications. We've been putting the word out through publicity and word of mouth that we will be entertaining expressions of interest in this new co-op gallery. To date, we've had approximately 20 replies from artists in the Valley and in Kings County, and 1 out of the city expressing interest in being part of that gallery. A few more expressions of interest in a couple of others related activities, but for now we'll concentrate on the gallery itself. Those are expressions of interest. We have not asked for the money yet. We have until we have a space that is called our gallery. We can't finalize a lot of it, but out of those 20, we're very confident that we will have the minimum number of 10 to move forward. That will depend on decisions this evening or at some point near close at hand, at which time we'll go back to those people and secure an agreement. We, we will be dividing the membership into two-dimensional artists and three-dimensional artists. Two-dimensional artists are the wall artists, they're the painters, the printmakers, that type of thing. Three-dimensional artists, as you would expect, sculptors, fabric artists, this type of thing. We found in a couple of our previous experience with co-op galleries a good balance between the wall artists and the floor artists, as we call them, was the best model. We're a little concerned with the wall space because you have artists who are now paying a membership fee to operate the gallery. They will want a reasonable amount of space in which to display their work. And so at Pier, for example, we had roughly an average of 8 to 9 running feet per artist. And we would hope to have at least that in the hardware gallery space. Tight. It's going to be tight. We also had hoped to have a gift shop for smaller items under $100. We will have to be very creative to come up with enough space for an attractive gift display in that area. We also hope to energize our art rental program. And in both the gift shop and the art rental program, it would not necessarily be exclusive to members of the gallery. We might open it up to non-members, which brings me to a distinct difference between us and private galleries. Most galleries these days charge a commission rate of 40 to 50% on any art that they sell on behalf of an artist. A lot of co-op galleries don't charge a commission at all. We will charge a 20% commission. Of that 20% commission, half will go to operating and half will go to what we call the Fair Share Fund. At the end of the year, the accumulated revenues in the Fair Share Fund will be divided equally with all artists. In other words, some artists will be very successful, some artists will not. At the end of the year, we expect that there should be a sharing of rent, of fair share revenue equal to at least 1 or 2 months rent that they would membership fee. So there is a bit of a leveling effect there. The gallery would probably be open 6 days a week in the high season. It would go to probably a 4-day or a 3-day operation in the off seasons. We had hoped to run a very strong instructional program or educational program, but again, the space will not lend itself currently, and we'll just chat a little bit about the educational elements of it later on. What I'm going to do is just skip into the budget because I don't know where I am time-wise, but we lay out in our budget that you may see a 2-year projection. We are asking council for a 2-year lease, basically, is what we're putting. We outline the rental rates that would make it most viable for us. And we would expect to be, well, we would be profitable from day one. We would be stable. The biggest concern is really retaining our artists each year. When it comes time to renew memberships, if the artists have had a reasonably successful year, they'll want to be back. I think that for the first year or two, they'll be very tolerant. Kentville does not have a good reputation for artists. as for galleries or for that type of thing. Of those 20 people that said they were interested in taking out a membership in this new art co-op, we had a lot of, almost a similar number say, tough town, don't see it. It's a, you know, that is, you know, we're not saying anything that you're probably not aware of. It's just a tough town in that sense. And so we're putting a significant part of our budget into marketing, and we hope to help bring down more traffic to the downtown area. And in regards to that, that second floor of the Culkin building, we believe that it's an outstanding opportunity. We know that the council is instructed to sell the building. We are asking for a bit of a pause in that attempt to sell it. We're asking to, with council, with the town, or business community, to have an ad hoc committee look at that second level as a potential creative center that could possibly, and we're not going to suggest totally what could go there, but there are several other opportunities for a printmakers co-op is currently being investigated seriously. We have approximately 10 artists who are interested in moving ahead with it. I happen to be spearheading that group. We're looking for space to have a production facility, educational facility, and a small exhibition opportunity. We're looking at 900, 1,200 square feet. That, along with a pottery co-op of the same size and opportunity, we think there's an opportunity for an educational co-op where instruction can be given on a more regular basis in a lot of the arts and crafts by very outstanding instructors. We think that that kind of a creative center not only would be a strong attraction for people to come into Kentville, but we think that it would provide, with operations like the gallery, a kind of a critical mass of arts and cultural activities. Center Stage is a really good example of what happens when an opportunity is seized. I'm sure you remember Center Stage when it was operating out of the back of the drugstore. You know, like through the generosity of private ownership and management, that gave them their start. And once they got their feet under them, they stood on their own feet. And I think that I couldn't think of a better example. And that's exactly what we think can happen with a creative center. It would help us with the gallery downstairs, and it would help attract other types of activities. I don't know if I've got any time left. I don't.
Oh, you're way off. No problem.
And you're all awake too. But anyway, that is our presentation, and I think probably we could explore it with a few questions.
Okay. Well, Bob, Jennifer took your information and tried to distill it down so that we could actually look at the decisions that you were looking for this evening. So I think if I could just put out there what we've said, and then we'll do questions.
Yep.
But the first one is that we would consider a 2-year lease for the new art gallery organization in Unit 3 based on the attached business plan at that funding level. So that's decision number one.
Number one.
Decision number 2 would be to be part of an ad hoc committee to determine the way ahead for the second floor. And I also believe that you've also asked for us to take a pause in the decision to sell the building.
As well as rent any parts of that until
Right,
that
right.
report is finished.
Okay, so pause in decision to sell and rent any further space in the building. So we would have three things to look at. And I think we have a really great example in how the Historical Society put together kind of their market research on the, where they've gone and their building and how they did it. So rather than look to us to put together an ad hoc committee, because of course we'd have to do the whole terms of reference and the governance stuff. So it's probably best for your group to put together a committee, and then we would provide members who are councillors who wanted to be part of that committee, and as well staff support if that was required. So I'm trying to drill this down to 2 decisions tonight. So the first would be a 2-year lease for the gallery space. A 2-year lease for the gallery space, and a pause in the sale and rent decisions that we've made with regards to that building.
Yes.
Okay, so I will open this up to questions, and Councillor Gerard, please.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Hainstock. When you were speaking of wall space, I was thinking, I call them drop-down hanging walls. Are those something that could be an option in that space, or are we just way too limited on space?
Too limited on. Normally, if you had a more open space, you could either go with standing or drop down. Yeah.
And the other question I had, how much space are you looking at for instructional? Is for example, would the rec hall or the downstairs of the rec hall be enough space for you to run classes?
It might be for a standalone. Part of the appeal of an educational co-op would be for the existing members of a co-op gallery or printmakers or whatever, because they would probably have preference in the instructional part. And for example, in a printmaking co-op, it's equipment driven. That's why you don't have many of them around. You have to have presses and things like that. To put on educational programs, they would have to be there.
Yep.
Same with pottery. Same with a lot of the painting and drawing are relatively straightforward, and some of the other arts and crafts activities can be straightforward, but a lot of them, they require special equipment, and I don't think that that would be done very efficiently in another location.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So just a couple of questions, Mr. Hainstock. When you say about that Kentville doesn't have a great reputation for artists, what is that based on? I'm just trying to get a sense of where that is. It based on the type of art that is being showcased there? Is it just a general thought? Is it just trying to get my head around that comment?
Probably it reflects comments that have come to me in the last few weeks from artists that we've been trying to get interested in being a member of a co-op.
Okay.
It also comes from being part of the arts community here for a long time.
Okay.
We had an excellent gallery here in Edgemere.
Yes.
It changed hands and moved. We used to have a bit of a part-time, almost what you'd call a pop-up gallery in the museum. It just ceased to be supported. or it was less of a priority.
Mhm.
We have, the only real gallery we have is at the hospital.
Mm.
And again, excellent work
Mm.
along with, but is it a professional gallery?
Mhm.
Not really. Kentville, we've had artists come to Kentville to locate. Most recent example I can think of would be Brad Hall, a really well-known provincial, national sculptor, hoping to locate his metal sculpting and blacksmithing operation here in Kentville. And Brad left frustrated. Might have been what he was trying to do, put his welding or blacksmithing operation in the wrong place. I don't know.
Okay.
But a bit of a negative attitude type of thing. It's how do opinions come into being? It's a series of things.
Mm.
Art galleries are a tough business right now, and artists that we've talked to trying to interest in being part of a gallery have these reservations.
Okay. Just if you don't mind. So could you do one without the other? Like, could you engage these 10 full-time artists and 6 part-time and develop this cooperative? You say it's a popular model across Canada. Could you do that, sort of commence that? I know you're looking for the 2-year lease, but does that have to go, in conjunction with the upper level? Could you do one without the other?
Yes.
And you would have the receptivity from your RFP that you issued?
I think so. It would make, it would not assure the success of the gallery,
Mm-hmm.
but it would help create an overall environment in
Mhm.
which each would be contributing traffic to the other.
Right.
But the gallery can stand on its own.
Okay.
I think it would have just a little bit tougher time to make a go of it, but I think it could make a go of it, very definitely.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you for your presentation, Bob. It was really good, and I like the idea. Is it fair to say that the educational piece would be extremely important in developing an art appreciation within the community as a first step to teaching people to come in and make art and do art, that then there would be eventually, hopefully, more appreciation for what is being shown. So I'm thinking maybe in Kentville we've never really had a lot of art lessons, so to speak, or lessons in teaching young people how to create art, where we've always had lots of sports training in a lot of the different sports. And so I'm looking at that second floor and saying, well, I know in high school now we're teaching art to students in the high schools and they're getting credit for it. Some of our students leave and go, are going to NECAC and they would be getting that. But to have the ability to pursue an interest outside of the school building in a community, I would think would increase the amount of appreciation that you might see within a community for the arts. Is that fair to say or not?
More than fair.
Okay.
One of the people, one of the strongest supporters of the concept, who wants to be part of that, he wants to be part of the gallery, but also of the educational component, is Paul Symes from NECAC, who's probably taught sent more students to NASCAD, Ontario College of Art, Alberta College of Art. He's a serious dude when it comes to instruction, and he really believes in this project. He wants to be part of it. It's arts and culture is a kind of a needy little child.
Mm-hmm.
but it can grow into something that's really wonderful. You can't measure it the same way as you measure another business. You can't measure it in bottom line all the time. Sometimes it's frustrating, you know, and for the town to have that building, I know it's work, but it's an opportunity, and that space on the second floor. Rent out any more of it or sell the building, it's gone. And there isn't any other, there's lots of space, but not for that opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. Good presentation, sir. One thing keeps jumping out at me is that the discussion of the lack of space downstairs and using the upstairs. Has anybody looked at what the financial cost might be to bring the upstairs or the downstairs up to the level that you want, and what those costs are and who would incur those costs?
That's what we would want to look at.
Okay.
More or less, that's, I can throw figures at you that, you know, but to put some figures together with some kind of a cost benefit so that you can apportion who pays for what. I think that's what we have to do with the next 2 or 3 months if we're given that opportunity.
So certainly I support the concept, but I would like to see more information come back as to what those costs are, so we know up front. So
yeah.
So I won't support the
so
motion
we-
tonight, but I think, yeah, so that may be something that staff could look at, but it's a concept there.
All right, thank you. Councillor Pulsifer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's a wonderful idea, a great concept, and being able to be open longer than the previous gallery has been able to, I think, you know, that may encourage more people to come and appreciate the art in there. You know, just being open maybe 2 or 3 days a week has been difficult for the hardware gallery to establish a continuity of perhaps people coming and going and so on. You go by and sometimes it's closed and sometimes it's open, and I do believe you have to start somewhere, and your idea is, you know, it's very much of an adventure for sure. I reference the little gallery over in Margarettsville that operates out of that little shed out by the beach, and it is a cooperative, I believe, too, which, I mean, it's ongoing. It just keeps being there, and new artists keep coming in, and so on and so forth. But that's a success, just running out of that little spot there. So, you know, I think it's a wonderful idea. And as far as, you know, costs and so on, it would be nice to be able to utilize the upstairs, the second floor, to make it a complete entity, is full of culture and ability to do artwork and so on. So I'd be, you know, very interested in following up and seeing how it might work. So, yeah.
Well, I think that the difference between the two galleries in concept and vision aren't really that different, but when you have to spend a lot of your time
Mhm.
worrying about where it's coming from,
Mhm.
and, such as hardware has had to do,
Yes, yeah.
but they've done great work
Mm.
in the community with other projects and programs, and we would be part of the Kentville Art Gallery Society, and they would be able to continue their visions, and we
Mhm.
could continue to pursue our visions because they happen to be the same.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. No, they've done a great job. Yeah, thank you.
All right, are there any further questions? All right, Bob, thank you very much.
Right? Thank you, guys.
All right, we're moving on to department reports and recommendations. The directors will present their reports and will be accepted into record with one motion at the end of the reporting. Specific recommendations will be moved individually as necessary, and councillors may present questions and comments to the directors at the end of each presentation. And we're going to start with finance with Director Kroll, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and welcome back after our summer break. It was kind of nice to have a break. What?
Can you press that button, please?
Power,
There you go.
right?
Yep. Thank you.
There you go.
Bring it up. Yep.
I hope y'all had a nice month of August. I know we did. Thanks very much for the break. I'm reporting from the Finance Department for the month ended August 31st, 2019. I'm not going to go into all the details on the finance update. You can read most of that, but I will highlight for everybody that we've sent out the final tax levy, and that was released in August, and there's a due date of September 30 for the final tax levy, just so everybody knows that date. We're looking at 42% as the benchmark at the end of August. At August 31st, 2019, the revenue exceeds the average at 80.1% recorded. Taxes, as I mentioned before, have been released for the final levy. Total taxation at the end of August is reporting at 99.9% of budget, so you can't get much closer to 100% than that, other than 100%. Payments in lieu of tax from both the federal and the provincial government have been claimed, so those respective government agencies. The federal government has paid their grant in lieu of tax. We received $7,052 more than actually I claimed for. We await the payment, that we budgeted for. I await the payment from the province of Nova Scotia, but the County of Kings did pay us its share of that property related to the rental for the, while they were party to that provincial property on Cornwallis Street. Under services to other government, 1/4 of the Kentville Police Services secondment is recorded along with a 50% invoice to the County of Kings for its share of the library lease. Under sales and services, we have 3 months recorded as revenue for sales of services by Kentville Police Service, and 5 months of sales are recorded by the Finance Department related to financial services provided to Kentville Volunteer Fire Department. Under other revenue-owned sources, fines, fees, and permits are reporting over the guideline because of the taxi licenses and the animal licenses that are collected at the beginning of the year. Rentals will show below the guideline for a good part of the year because ICE rentals make up the larger portion of this section. Unconditional transfers records the first quarter equalization payment from the province of Nova Scotia, and also the Power Corporation has paid its grant, and the Nova Scotia Power HST rebate arrived in July, $2,500 under the budget that we had crafted. Under conditional transfers, 25% of the provincial law enforcement is recorded. That's the additional officer program. And we have 80% of the provincial cost sharing for active living received. Recreation Nova Scotia forwarded cost sharing. This is unbudgeted, $680 to cost share and a conference attendance. And the Rotary Club gave the police service $800 to purchase bike helmets. That was also unbudgeted. And Valley Waste Resource Management returned some consulting management fees that we paid last fiscal year. Under the expenditure side of the ledger, we're slightly under the benchmark at 41.4% expended. Legislative slightly exceeds the benchmark due to travel expenses related to the NSFM and FCM conferences. Under general administration, it slightly exceeds the yardstick due to payment of insurance premiums and other office expenditures. In addition, 50% of the mandatory payment has been issued for assessment services, and 100% of tax exemptions related to Section 6971 are recorded. Under protective services, debt charge exceeds the guideline but reflects the debt repayment schedule. Under transportation services, public transit exceeds the benchmark but reflects the payment schedule forwarded to us by King's Transit Authority. Also, payment is made in full to King's Point to Point for its grant for the year. Debt charge in that section also exceeds the guideline but reflects the debt repayment schedule. Under environmental health services, this exceeds the benchmark but reflects the funding schedule set out by Valley Resource Management Authority. And under environmental development services, planning and zoning is slightly over the guideline due to annual insurance premium payments and conference attendance. Also, other community development exceeds the benchmark because we've released 50% funding to the Valley Wren and 50% funding to Kentville Business Community, along with full payment of the annual budgeted grant to Annapolis Valley Chamber of Commerce. Under recreation, administration exceeds the benchmark due to the expenditures related to summer staff and payment of the annual insurance premiums for liability and vehicles. The debt charge interest exceeds the guideline in this section also, but reflects the debt repayment schedule. And cultural exceeds the yardstick as 50% provincial mandatory funding has been made for the regional library, along with full payments of budgeted grants to cultural organizations. Under financing and transfer expenditures, this is where the debt charge principal payments are. It exceeds the benchmark but reflects the debt repayment schedule set out for 2019-20. Under Schedule C, which is the summary of outstanding taxes, we are looking at 48.7% of the levy collected, and it's compared to last year's figure of 48.6%. Total property tax outstanding as at August 31st is $4,765,403, and this compares to last year's figure of around $4.7 million. This equates to 49.0% collected in total at August 31st, and this compares to last year's figure of 48.8%. On Schedule D, we're looking at the sanitary sewer area service, and this is for the quarter ended June 30th, 2019, and the benchmark in this case is 25%. Revenue falls short of the benchmark, reporting at 20.4%. Quarterly sewer charges billed meet the threshold. The annual Municipality of Kings sewer billing skews the percentages at this early reporting date because that isn't billed until later in the fiscal year. However, once we extrapolate those current figures, it appears that the budget target will be met by the end of the year. Expenditures are also under the threshold at 21.7% expended. The expenditures related to the jointly funded sewer treatment plant are on target at 25% recorded. Pumping station exceeds the benchmark due to the payment of annual insurance premiums, and fiscal services reporting at 92.9% and accurately reflects the debt repayment schedule. At this time, at the end of this first quarter, the sanitary sewer area service is presently reporting a current operating deficit position of $16,767. Schedules E and F relate to the Perpetual Investment Fund. The Investment Advisory Committee met on July the 10th to discuss the report for the month ended June 30. You can see the cost breakdowns in the middle of page 5, cost versus market of the instruments we're invested in. Total investments at cost equate to about $13.4 million. Schedule F reports the income that has been earned to date at June 30th. Interest paid into the fund is $21,658. Dividends paid into the fund, $41,450, and capital gains are $127,877. You can see the comparator for last year's capital gains in the brackets next to it. At June 30th, management fees total $6,104, and you can see the comparison there for last year at some $8,500. The next schedules are Schedules G, which is the Town of Kentville Capital Investment Plan, and those are inserted for your reading pleasure. There's not a lot happening at this point in time. This is as at the end of August, the date that this was written late last week. $208,763 is recorded at this point in time, and you can go through those pages and see where that money has been spent up to the end of August. And Schedule H is there for your information related to the amounts due to from the municipality of the County of Kings, and that is my report.
Thank you very much, Deb. Are there any questions? There does not seem to be any questions, so moving on to your next one.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm bringing 2 temporary borrowing resolutions, and I think the first one is the sanitary sewer area service for $125,000. The attached temporary borrowing resolution, which was prepared by and sent to us from the Department of Municipal Affairs, relates to the sanitary sewer area services 2019-2020 capital program. The resolution requires council's authorization before it's forwarded to the Minister of the Department of Municipal Affairs for ministerial consent. Once all approvals are in place, funds can be drawn down as required to finance on a temporary basis the 2019-2020 capital acquisitions for the sanitary sewer area service. My recommendation reads that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that it authorizes the temporary borrowing resolution noted below and then forwards this resolution to the next meeting of Town Council for ratification. Following this event, the document will be sent to the Minister for the Department of Municipal Affairs for provincial authorization, and the issue is TBR 19/20-02. The purpose is sewer, and the amount is $125,000.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council advisory authorize the temporary borrowing resolution TBR number 1920-02 sanitary sewer area service capital 2019-2020 for $125,000 to be ratified at the September 30th, 2019 council meeting. Following approval, it will be sent to the Minister for Department of Municipal Affairs for provincial authorization. Is there any discussion? Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. All right.
Yes, thank you. The next temporary borrowing resolution relates to the Town of Kentville Capital Program for the year 1920. The attached temporary borrowing resolution was prepared, like the previous one, by the Department of Municipal Affairs and relates to the Town of Kentville's 2019-2020 capital program. It requires council's authorization before it goes to the Minister for Department of Municipal Affairs for ministerial consent. Once all these approvals are in place, funds can be drawn down as required to finance on a temporary basis the 1920 capital acquisitions for the Town of Kentville. My recommendation reads that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that it authorizes the temporary borrowing resolution noted below and then forwards this resolution to the next meeting of Town Council for ratification. Following this event, the document will be sent to the Minister for the Department of Municipal Affairs for provincial authorization. The issue is TBR 19/20-01. Purposes, various purposes, and the amount is $1,081,500, and you can see the breakdown of exactly what that is on Schedule A, which is attached to this report.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the council advisory authorize the temporary borrowing resolution TBR 1920-01 Town of Kentville Capital 2019-2020 for $1,081,500 to be ratified at the September 30th, 2019 council meeting. Following approval, it will be sent to the Minister for Department of Municipal Affairs for provincial authorization. Is there any discussion? Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. Motion is carried. Thank you. All right, Deb, thank you very much. Moving on, Director Gentleman for Planning and Development.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. Welcome back. For the time between July and August, 27 development permits were issued. This brings us with a building valuation of $1.1 million, just slightly over that, and that brings us to a year total of $18.2 million in building activity for Kentville. 6 subdivision applications were processed. Dangerous and unsightly premises calls. We had several come in. Most of it has to do with grass and lawns and things like that. So at the beginning of the summer, we put together this OOPS notice, which is also part of the package, which is really just a public education process. Oops, we've noticed that your lawn's a little overgrown, or we received a call. Can you kindly rectify it? It seems, and we had great success with it. Nice. Every time we drop one off, we get a call within a day or so. Wanting to know what it was, and though it's, relatively self-explanatory, they understood, and properties are taken care of. Zoning certificates, 3 zoning certificates were issued. The Healy property have had 7 special events and weddings, with 7 more between now and the end of October, and 1 vending permit has been issued. In terms of projects, I haven't heard anything back from Glooscap with regards to their desire to acquire the land. I have a call into them, but I've yet to hear back from them. The former KCA lands, the site plan was approved for the property last month, and since then a sign has been erected on the property advising of the new development, which they hope to break ground next year. We may see some activity on the ground in terms of some grading and things this year or this fall, but there won't be anything, from what we've been told, put into the ground, any type of structure. Green Parsons Development, the road across the street from the research station, they've had their footings in and the stormwater plans have been signed off by the town. Since then, the additional permits for the main structure has been issued for 2 of the 4 buildings, and all parkland fees have been paid, and those fees are intended to be put towards a trail, which will be built between the development to allow their residents and community to get down to the Kentville Trail. Other parkland dedication requirements, staff has been working with different developers to bring them into compliance with the parkland dedication requirements pursuant to the subdivision bylaw. The Culkin Building, staff had accompanied the building official to the Culkin Building to determine the type of uses that could be accommodated on the 2nd floor with little or no improvements to meet the current building code. So we got a lot of valuable information on that property and the upstairs for future uses of that space. Website work, staff was working with inserting documents relating to planning and economic development within our section of the new website. Letters have been handed out to River Street businesses and residents, informing them of the potential of the upcoming dike work. That will hopefully be underway soon. From what I understand, there's a meeting tomorrow or sometime this week for those individuals who've received the letter to get further information on that project. And an expression of interest for a public consultation process for 118 Oakdean Avenue was prepared and posted on the town website and provincial procurement site, and further information will follow with regards to that. And we continue to do various mapping and GIS work for our department as well as other departments within the town. And then there's just a list of meetings and events that took place over the summer.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the director? Councillor Maxwell.
Yes, Bev, you said that the staff looked at uses for the 2nd floor of the Culkin Building, possible uses. What did you come up with? What did they come up with for possible?
Well, what we wanted to get a determination of what it's been classified and used as at this point, which is office. Mm-hmm. So an office could go up there, and it's all based on the classification of the building code, which I don't want to really comment on too much because I'm not really proficient in it. But say if a restaurant wanted to go up there, it's a different use under the building code than an office space, and therefore to put a restaurant in there would require bringing the space up to code, current code.
What about a workspace, as was presented to us here
right.
tonight?
So I don't know. That would be something I'd have to speak with the building officials about to see under their list whether or not an office space and a workspace is the same.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. The Parsons Green development,
Mm-hmm.
I still look at their driveway. So explain to me again, for my own, their driveways are supposed to come down almost perpendicular to the road?
They will. For the purpose of construction, it's not necessary.
No, absolutely.
But, right, so there will be one that's in alignment with the exits to the research station.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one further east. That's actually going to be pulled further west. That one's going to be pulled closer to the first entrance and brought down in a T intersection.
Is there going to be, because I've looked at the far one in the far east, is there going to be work the town's going to have to do? Because it almost looks like we've got a wall holding that up, that if they want to come out at a better angle, that wall's going to have to be moved.
That will be at their expense.
That will be, okay, no, that's, yep.
To move their driveway.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Councillor Pulsifer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had one question, maybe you can't answer it, I'm not sure, Bev, but you mentioned future development, Roger Cameron, the West Main Street property. What type of development is that?
He hasn't gone into any great deal about it, but he does have some land at the West End that he's started initial conversations with staff about, so I don't think I'm really privileged to say anything more than that.
Okay, thanks.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Bev, just the KCA, the final drawings and things like that, and probably going to get started in spring 2020. I'm assuming that's within our time frame that we initially agreed on.
I suspect
That
so.
would
Believe so?
be details that you shouldn't be speaking for
Yeah,
the public.
Right, in camera. I'll withdraw that question.
Are there any further questions for the director? All right, moving on to your next item.
Okay. Subject is 118 Oakdene Public Consultation Process, the origin. CAO Phillips, on the direction of council, directed planning staff to formulate a process to gather feedback from residents in the north end of Kentville, as well as the general public, to understand what residents would like to see as a potential development at 118 Oakdene Avenue. A site-specific amendment to the LUB and MPS to allow for the redevelopment of the property by development agreement in November of 2018 was unsuccessful, and a request earlier this year by Open Arms Resource Center to rezone their properties at 118 Oakdene Avenue to high-density residential was denied. Since then, Council has concluded that the property warrants further consideration for redevelopment and has requested that a community meetings public consultation process be initiated to determine the community's vision for the property. In order to ensure an open and transparent process, staff informed council that the best practice for the public engagement was to contact an outside consultant. A call for expression of interest was posted on the town's website and the provincial procurement site with the closing date of August 30th, 2019. Once the public engagement process has been carried out, the consultant will provide a final report to council. The services from an outside consultant have not yet been awarded due to communication from council to staff around this process. The budget for this would be $5,000. So staff are essentially requesting confirmation from council tonight that they are in alignment with the previously agreed upon action to conduct a public input session through the engagement of an outside consultant to further explore the future development of 118 Oakdene Avenue.
All right, thank you. So we have a recommendation that council advisory recommends support of the consultation process for future development of the 118 Oakdene property to council meeting on the 30th of September 2019. If I could have someone move that so we can get it on the table for discussion. Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council advisory recommends support of consultation process for future development of the 118 Oakdene property to council meeting on the 30th of September 2019. Discussion. Is there any discussion? Councillor Maxwell.
When this first came up for council to discuss, it was a rather quickly called together meeting, and we were asked to kind of make a decision or just determine what we thought was we should do. And of course, like all quickly made decisions, given time to think, minds change. What I'm struggling with this now is the benefit to the taxpayers of Kentville of their $5,000 for this RFP. And I am struggling with that, and perhaps maybe some people around the table could enlighten me as to what the benefit would be to the town of Kentville, citizens and taxpayers, for us spending $5,000 to conduct a public session, information session, to tell a developer what they should do with their land. I don't know any developers who would be even interested in hearing from council about what they should do with the land at their disposal. I just don't see, it's not there for me to see this, and I'd like to say publicly that at no time have I, or I believe any member of this council, contrary to what you may have read on social media or been told verbally, have we ever said that we would be against an affordable housing or low-income project. What I have said repeatedly, over and over, is that this is the wrong location for this project. And I believe that's what council has said in the few times that we have turned down some things that have been pointed out here. So we've been told many, many, many times to consider what we do with taxpayer dollars and whether it is good money being spent. And I look at Open Arms, and I have not seen anything on their media pages or been told that they would even be open, as any developer would probably not be open to any suggestions coming from the public or from this council. I believe Open Arms as a charitable organization, if they look at the location and they see two very large affordable / low income projects sitting right beside them and a few small, definitely low income properties close by, that as a charitable organization, they are perfectly capable of coming up with use for that land themselves and their developer that would not add to what is already existing in that area. And I would think that perhaps as a charitable organization, they might look at a way to help the people that are already in that area who need help and who could use that land for many other purposes other than to put more of the same in that area. So I need my council colleagues to explain to me what this $5,000 is going to do for the taxpayers in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I'd just like to remind council that in debate, you are providing your opinions and the information that you have secured through investigation. You are not answering the questions of other councillors. That goes back to the director. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Because, and I believe I'm correct in saying that our previous conversation about this was in camera.
That's correct.
I will only say this. I won't support this motion because, and as I've stated in emails previously over the last few weeks, I don't find it as inclusive as what I remember our discussion in camera was. And for that reason, I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pulsper.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a problem with the authorization of the payment of the $5,000 to facilitate a consultant for the project. And I know we can't really discuss what we discussed in camera, but I don't recall any mention of amount of money that was to be put forward for the securing of a consultant at that time. So to me that was a bit of a surprise to see that amount of money on this, RFD. We agreed an outside person might be needed to facilitate the process of exploring options of the potential development. But as for the actual amount that would be spent, I don't, I just feel I have difficulty with that amount of money. Bottom line, it's the taxpayers' money for a development that is a private development and site specific at the moment. So.
Thank you.
If I could just make a couple of comments, it might help the debate. First of all, as I understand it, council is not being asked to approve the expenditure. The expenditure comes from the department budget. You just happen to know what the expenditure is. So it's not council's job to approve or disapprove that $5,000. You already approved the budget. The staff decide how to spend their budget. The other thing that's important to keep in mind goes to it's really the law around land use planning. And you have an MPS that addresses the town as a whole. You can also do planning on a more precise scale where you look at specific properties. So I hear what Councillor has to say about developers, but the reality is that this council does get to tell developers and the owners of lands exactly how properties can be used within a reasonable scope. That is your job, and that's what the municipal planning strategy actually does. And you can do it on a macro level or a much more precise level, which is what staff have suggested here with respect to this property. So I just think it's important to keep that land use planning part of the Municipal Government Act in mind when you're considering whether the area you're looking at just happens to be defined by the boundaries of 2 lots, or whether it's the entire north end, or whether it's the entire town, and whether it's this property that perhaps needs special attention, or whether it's any other property in the town of Kentville that needs special attention, where council through staff look at that property in particular and decide from a community-driven perspective what's acceptable on that property from the community's perspective, which often is not necessarily, the same perspective as the owner or developer. But it's your opportunity to influence future development of this property or any property in the town of Kentville through your municipal planning strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that clarify the questions that you may have had? Okay. Is there any further discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So when I look at the request for decision, and it talks about seeking confirmation from council that they're in alignment with the previously agreed to public input session for the engagement of an outside consultant to explore the future development of 118 Oakdean Avenue. So, Director Gentleman, the idea around the public consultation is to be all-inclusive to residents, all residents in the town of Kentville, I'm assuming, and that the outside person that's called in, the facilitator, has a strategy around engaging those such residents so that they have input into what they feel should transpire at that location. And when I'm saying location and property, I'm trying to take out of the piece of the ownership, because the ownership could change next month or next year or next week.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, on all accounts.
Yes, on all accounts. So my next question then, if I can direct it to Solicitor Matart, would be if as a council, we don't entertain options for a specific piece of land that doesn't necessarily fall within our land use planning and MPS, what ramifications could that mean?
Yeah.
If
Through
you
you,
can
Your
answer.
Worship. The MPS currently governs that property.
Yes,
So what you're talking about is investigating other uses, potential other uses, that the MPS doesn't currently allow for. It might be that through this process, nothing changes.
right.
But
could stay zoned as it is
this
now.
is what's being contemplated is staff-driven, as opposed to property owner-driven. Property owners can bring things to you that start a process that you must follow through the process. This is staff being proactive to determine whether there are other uses that aren't currently permitted that would be acceptable to the community and through ultimately to council for that property.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
I think you're looking to conclude, your debate here, although that's up to you. I did want to, defend staff on this issue. This is a direction given to staff. I'm confident that the minutes reflect that. This is here before you tonight as a bit of a pause and reflection to make sure that you do or do not want to continue with the direction that we were given. Our request for decision is not a recommendation. That's for you, and someone has created that tonight. We have just said, is this what you still want to do? We want to be in alignment with council's wishes. So whatever you decide on this recommendation, we will abide by. But I do want to state that I'm confident this is in alignment with the direction we were given. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. Good discussion. I think at the end of the day, we all want closure and to move on and come up with an answer that's acceptable to everybody. But if it's not acceptable to some people, well, then that's unfortunate. But if we can have a clear public engagement that's balanced and that's trackable, I'll be happy with that. But certainly, I think any further discussion on this, then we're getting to on the edge of conflict of interest discussion and in camera, knowing the emotion around this and the legal side of things. So,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything further? Are you ready for the question? Are we ready for the question? Voting is now closed. It's a tie vote, therefore it fails. So the motion is defeated. All right, Community Economic Development Coordinator's Report. CAO, are you providing that?
No, the coordinator's stepping up to the podium
okay,
tonight.
very
and while she's
good.
doing that, I should have introduced her earlier, as well as Facility Manager Kevin Bennett. We're blessed this evening. We don't often see him here, so I shouldn't have missed him when we did the roll call, Your Worship.
Well, we saw his video. It went viral, so
Okay.
throwing those sandbags around. So
There you go. Thank you.
just never know. All right, go ahead, Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. Under Programs and Operations, our fall marketing campaigns are underway. We continue to target traveling outdoor enthusiasts with our advertising this year. Over the summer months, many of the campaigns used mountain biking and trails as the hook, obviously, because we were hosting Canada Cup. It was an excellent tie-in. We have now transitioned to Pumpkin People season, and the festival will be featured in all of our autumn campaigns being run this year in print and on the radio. Under projects, the new gateway sign for Eves Hollow is finally installed. It's been a long wait, and I'm really excited to say that it's now in. There is some landscaping work that remains outstanding. Work continues at the Kempville Public Garden site and is anticipated to be complete by late September. An official ribbon cutting ceremony will be scheduled at a later time. An artistic rendition of the Kentville logo with a festival-like feel has been installed under the gazebo in Center Square as part of this year's summer beautification efforts. You can go check that out if you haven't already. A downtown signage project is in the planning phase. The signage plan will deal specifically with new, more welcoming branded signage for Center Square and the public garden space. Purchase and installation of the signs will happen in phases, maybe some this year and some next year, although I'll take direction from the finance director on that one. KBC's Multicultural Festival Committee pulled off an amazing event on August 24th in Center Square. I know probably many of you were there. The event has grown to be a very large-scale production over the last 5 years, and the group was very, very well organized and prepared for the volume of activity that took place. The group estimates more than 1,000 people attended over the course of the day. The VIC continues to serve visitors from all over the map, and August stats are showing a 26% increase in visitor traffic over the same time period last year. Pumpkin People have made it through their planning phase and are well into construction phase. This year's theme is Welcome to Toontown, and the Pumpkin People will be recreating scenes and characters from their favorite classic cartoons. Pumpkin People will be on display from October the 5th until the 27th. The town of Kentville, as part of the Annapolis Valley region, has been awarded the WCCD Gold certification for 2018. This is very exciting because it's the first time the WCCD has designated a region to receive this certification, which is usually reserved for cities. The Annapolis Valley is now the world's first rural, sustainable, and smart region as designated by the WCCD. WCCD stands for the World Council on City Data. I didn't include this in my written report, I forgot, but just so you know, under other, we also have a new tenant that's moved into the Calkin building in Unit 2. That person will be operating a retail store, and she hopes to be open in October. And then I just have listed there for your information, Council, the meetings and events that I attended in the months of July and August.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for our Community Development Coordinator? Councillor Pulsfer.
Almost.
Just it'd be quick. The new gateway sign at Eves Hollow, are there going to be other ones similar to that at the entrances to the town?
Yeah.
West
The plan
End?
is, yes.
Mhm.
We have 4 other locations for gateway signs. They will be in a similar look and feel, but they will be on a smaller scale. The one that we have at Eves Hollow is meant to be a little bit of a showpiece. It's quite big. If you stand beside it, you can kind of do the whole breath of fresh air miming.
Yeah.
The other ones will be similar look and feel, but smaller in scale and size.
Okay, so 4 others.
4 others,
Four
yes.
others, yeah.
You'll see a request in the capital budget requests that come your way for 2020, 2021.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions? You're free to go. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to take a recess, a 5-minute recess. So if you could shut the recording off. And so All right.
Give us 20 more minutes to get another one.
Director Bedingfield, thank you very much for appearing here tonight. If you could go on with your report, please.
Good evening, Council. It was a great summer for our department. I'm pleased to say we were very busy, but everything going, it was very successful. From a facility perspective, all facilities had a great summer. The trails, the ball fields, the soccer fields hosted many games and tournaments and races and events. The arena hosted several summer events as well, all scheduled around regular annual maintenance by arena staff, so we make sure that the arena gets a little bit of a facelift every year to keep it going. The Gorge hosted a second Canada Cup, and with a few additions to the course, it's now been added to the list of one of Canada's top mountain biking venues. We're really proud of that. And we did some really great work at the Miners Marsh this year as well, as long as sections of the Kenfield Trail. Under programs and operations, we had the following numbers I thought you might be interested in. We had 635 registrants in our summer programs. Over 40 community members were provided funding assistance to attend our programs and recreate in our community. Employed 25 youth to help keep our town looking great and our programs running smoothly. Trained and developed 7 junior leaders. Provided 28 community members with autism a chance to learn how to swim and stay safe around water. Hosted 3 mermaids in our pool and made $400 for the Spike program, and we sold 45 pool passes. Overall, it was a pretty great summer. Everyone's exhausted but happy. The public swims were extremely popular this summer, and twice, due to ratios, we had to turn folks away because the pool was just at capacity. We've never had that, certainly in my experience here. So we're going to continue to monitor this moving forward and see if we need to expand staff. The early morning lane swims were hosted by the Kenfield Marlins, were also a success. We started that this year as a fundraiser for the club in partnership with them. And the Kenfield Marlins, thanks to those of you who actually showed up to their provincial swim meet, they were really proud to show off our pool this year and had quite a lot of fanfare there as well. Our Active Living Community Coordinator will be leaving on maternity leave in October. So you may have seen the job ad that's out to fill her position. And this summer we filled the Arena and Park position, which was formerly held by Gary McGinnis. And I want to congratulate Mike Dauphney for accepting the position and deciding to join the Kenfield family. We're really excited to have him on board. If you don't know Mike, he would be the person that recently got married in the arena, so he knows that space intimately. Capital update. As I mentioned before, the Kenfield Pool project is complete with the updated locker rooms and pool bed being updated to better serve our community. Again, we're really proud of this facility, and it has received some attention. We've received amazing feedback for the work that has been done to ensure its accessibility. You may have seen our event trailer, our brand new event trailer at some of this summer's events. With its purchase, we're now easily able to support events run by both the town and community groups by having everything in one location, and it also offers an excellent opportunity for additional branding at these events, so we're quite excited about that. Public engagement. You may have heard of this little event. This is our second event, our second time we've hosted the Canada Cup. This event was larger than last year with an increase in registration as well as a larger event in itself, so we actually upped our category a little bit. With the addition of the short track build at Memorial Park, which is an entirely different category, we're able to hold 2 youth races as well as additional category races for the 15+ category. This is the work that we're doing with Bicycle Nova Scotia and Cycling Canada to help build the sport in the area. The provincial series was held on Saturday and the national event was held on the Sunday. Officials also participated in the event, including those representing the International Cycling Federation. There's a huge effort from volunteers, sponsors, athletes, coaches, support staff, family, and community members. So we want to make sure that everyone is thanked, and we look forward to seeing everybody again next year. We're still waiting on confirmation of those dates from UCI. You can see a list of the meetings that I attended over the summer. A few that I want to highlight for you. The Kings County Recreation, so since the needs assessment was completed, the various municipalities within Kings County have come together both at the CIO level and at the recreation staff level just to talk about different ways to collaborate and work better together. So this is the start of some very much needed conversations. I went in and talked to some local doctors as hosted by the Nova Scotia Health Authority, talked not only about what's available in their community but how we can better serve their patients. We hear more and more from doctors that they want to get more involved in the community and be proactive. And then the last piece here I wanted to focus on under meetings was the NBD research project. I've mentioned this before. This is a project that looks at redesigning community recreation. Kentville's been chosen as a pilot, and we're working closely with researchers from UMB, as well as the ReSport program, an initiative within Nova Scotia that's linked to a national event, so you'll be hearing more and more about that. And under council-related active transportation, we're currently seeking funding options for the advancement of the recommended immediate priorities as per council's direction, so you'll be seeing that next year. And then with regards to the multipurpose facility, the next step is the feasibility study as a priority set from you folks, and we're in the research stage, including speaking with other facilities and municipalities. I do want to point out that our facility manager sits on the Recreation Facility Association of Nova Scotia, which is very convenient for us because, of course, we have access to all the information that we could possibly need moving forward, including examples of other facilities, RFPs, plans, and budgets. And that's my report.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. Congratulations on as what they say at K-Rock, the best summer ever, but truly it was. The weather was super. I mean, look at the weather for Canada Cup compared to last year. And just a great job. I enjoyed volunteering on the Saturday, helping the CEO set up barricades, etc., and actually putting a medal on David Marshall's neck. He was a Kentville resident, and he won his age group, so it was really great. So, good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, super.
Are there any further questions for the director? I have one comment. Our Marlins did exceptionally well at the swim meet, and they are a very young team. And what do you think of the idea of having them come in here next CAC and we do a little hand out some certificates?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Did you want me to get in touch with them?
If you could do that, that would be. And I hear they got some pretty good hardware, and they knew which way that it should face when they were doing photo ops. So, maybe we could get them in here with their hardware and those trophies and show it off a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Great, thanks. Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, I just said, just to echo what Councillor Bolland said, it's always, what you do and what your team does over the summer months is just incredible, and we just appreciate you more than you know, and we are a gold standard town here, and we live up to that always, so thank you very much.
Thank you, and if I may, recreation in our town gets a lot of kudos for a lot of great things, but it's very much a team effort, so I do want to point out that without my colleagues helping plan, helping pay for it, none of it would be possible. Make sure everybody's safe. Yeah, it wouldn't be possible. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Deputy Chief. That's the first time I got to say that out loud.
Your Worship, members of Council, thank you very much. Chief is away. She'll be back later this week on a planned vacation. I'm going to report here on some of our activity for July and August. Our auxiliary officers, they logged in 86 hours, 86.5 in July, 115 hours in August. We have no training. We checked the motor vehicles on the road, 139 in July, 186 in August. Warning tickets were issued, 55 in July, 51 in August. Summary offense tickets, speeding, what have you, 39 in July, 44 in August. Foot patrols, we logged in 113 hours in July, 129 in August, and that would include our bicycle patrols. Criminal code charges, 35 in July and 22 in August. We responded to 417 calls in July and 328 in August. Some of the meetings that we attended, whether it be a shelter in place at the Kentville Research Station, doing threat assessments with them, planning and that sort of thing. I helped out with that. We had a meeting with Lindsay there regarding the Center Square development from a public safety perspective on that. And of course, Rupert Davis meeting, the chief has been heavily involved in that, and there will be a dedication ceremony September 27th at 2 p.m. at the Oak Grove Cemetery for a stone. Some of the other items here, we did 9 roadside checkpoints in July. We did 8 in August, and we participated in the opening ceremonies of Nova Scotia Special Olympics at Acadia University, and it was they're always fun times to go and enjoy those openings. I attended the day with the Nova Scotia Fire, or the Canadian Fire Chiefs volunteer across Canada at Acadia, and listened to the Humboldt crash debrief with the one of the first responders from the Nipawin town, Fire Chief Brian Starkle. Of course, we helped it with Canada Cup with traffic and Foot Patrol's Multicultural Festival. We can go to the next one there, Jennifer, which bylaw report. So loitering in July, we've had 8 complaints of loitering in downtown, or sorry, 6 in the downtown. In August, we'd have 8. Constable Cunningham assisted the police, the Kentville Police, with 23 times in July, and 20 in August. He completed 4 taxi inspections in August. Animal control, we had 6 complaints in August. Smoking, that was in August as well, and that would be a charge, a cannabis charge that was laid downtown, smoking cannabis. There was 100 smoking warnings for August and 115 in July. Parking offenses, in August he issued 47 parking tickets, and in July, I'm getting confused here. 47 in August and 33 in July. And parking warnings, they were pretty much the same, 376, 375 for both months. Some of these calls for service, June 354 calls, July 417 calls, August 328 calls. We responded to 16 traffic accidents in July and 7 in August. Impaired driving, we had 6 complaints in July and 4 in August. Provincial statutes, 48 in July and 31 in August. Bylaw calls, you see 5 for July and 18 in August. There was one drug charge laid in for each month. We've had 25 crimes against persons for July, 14 in August. Property crimes were 47 in July, 28 in August. Assisted citizens 28 times in July, 17 in August. We assisted help with other agencies, could be the RCMP, Border Patrol, Canadian Border Services, Child Protection, 18 in July and 10 in August. We've had 26 suspicious persons or vehicles in July and 16 in August. Traffic-related offenses, 63 and 64 for July and August. Mental health assistance calls, 12 in July and 11 in August. Calls to the police regarding parking, 3 in July, 4 in August. And we responded to 11 alarms in July and 3 in August. If you have any questions about any police-related for either month.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. When you mentioned about the impaired driving, is that because it's under calls for service, were they actually stopped and charged, or was it phone calls that the police service received saying this person is drinking and driving?
I don't have the specifics, but it could be either or.
Okay.
I know there were 4 complaints. I can't really say how many charges were actually laid for impaired driving for say August month. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But both observation on the road and calls.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Have you, or have any of the members seen, and I think there's 2, people on bicycles with lawnmower engines propelling them along the road. Have you caught those two?
I've seen them before.
Yes.
Not those two, but I've seen them, these electric mopeds before.
No, these are actual bicycles rigged up with a lawnmower motor, and they're riding on the road, and they're making a heck of a noise. And I've seen two different ones up on Oak Dean at different times, and coming down from Wallace Street. So.
I can't say that I'm aware of that, but I'd certainly make note of it. If they're under a certain CC, they're permitted to be operated on the road like a bicycle, following the rules of the road.
Yeah, no, they're rigged up. They're homemade versions of, I don't know what, a motorbike, I guess. But they're really, really noisy.
I might have seen one day going out Park Street and noisy but slow, puttering along.
I might have a picture of one. Okay.
So it's just the noise that's excessive noise.
Well, yeah, it's noisy. I didn't,
Yeah.
The excessive noise for sure would be a problem.
I'll find out.
Yeah.
Are there any further questions for the Deputy Chief? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, CAO, the Engineering and Public Works report.
Thank you, Your Worship. So before you is a report from the department. Daily shop meetings continue. Planning, design, and construction for the capital budget for 2019 and 20 projects are ongoing, and that's for water, sewer, and for town-related projects. Weekly meetings with the consulting engineers from Able Engineering have been taking place, and projects are progressing through the various phases. And I know part of this agenda we have a capital update. Just on the most popular item is asphalt, and the schedule for asphalt to be completed for those places is October 15th. So if folks are asking you, that is the date. Director of Public Works, the selection committee members have conducted interviews and have finalized the selection process. An announcement will be made when it is appropriate. So we have reference checks and confirmation and so forth. So we're just not there, but I'm confident this week we will be making an announcement on that position. Just a note on the traffic calming slowdown signs that have been placed on the streets for another year. They will remain there until snow removal season. A more thorough review of their application, installation, and wider use is something the new traffic authority should revisit next year. Again, I think it's been successful, but a better way to anchor them, different locations, and so forth. We just kind of had a soft release last year of those, and I see other towns have picked up our trend. Regional Sewer Authority, a facility tour was conducted earlier in the summer. A display of modernized components was observed, as well as some of the current and future challenges facing that system. Generally, with proper care and continued commitment to capital improvement, the facility has capacity and will serve the communities well into the future. So we always talk about capacity with respect to the regional sewer and what can we accommodate. Residential demands on the system are really very minimal. It's your pie plants and previously chicken plants and places and operations like that that have significant impact. So with respect to residential development, I would suggest there's lots of capacity there, but something that committee will continue to revisit. Stormwater. This summer we have experienced significant demands on our current stormwater system. By all accounts, the systems are performing as designed. In some cases, the increased intensity of rainwater we've been experiencing has overwhelmed the current sections around town. System renewal on Condon should provide for a modern system when the work is completed, as well as the reditching carried out in the business park. A more thorough description of the September 7th event will be provided in October, but perhaps I'll give something verbal here at the end of my report. Just Dorian happening on Friday just doesn't give us enough time to get reports completed. Public Works, the Kemptville Bridge work continues in the area by the various stakeholders. The town staff have been present there carrying out some of our own work, as well as supporting provincial and Dexter's officials. The project is still very much under the supervision of the province, and at least my office has received very few phone calls, inquiries about it. I thought the pile driving of the steel would result in phone calls, but at least in my office, it has not. The Water Commission is nothing to report at this time. Sanitary sewer or regional I've just touched on. With respect to Public Works, emails have been medium. Drop-ins should be medium as well, and so forth. Meetings and events, again, just responding to various needs. And Richard Boyd, our superintendent, continues to meet with developers and folks regarding issues in the field. So maybe before I conclude this report, I will just give council for the public record a little description of really the two impacts. We have two events, August 30th and then September 7th. I guess we're calling that Dorian. So they're very similar in nature. I think I could say the August 30th event was where majority of our infrastructure damage was felt and occurred. After the 30th, we went into what we called stabilization mode, where we tried to incorporate things and systems to try to mitigate increased damage. And I think we were successful with that with respect to Dorian's impact on our infrastructure. Both events had significant impact on citizens and some homes, and Dorian more so than the August 30th. It will take some time from our adjusters and insurance providers to determine if there's any negligence on behalf of the town, but all indicators are that our June 27th event, which we've talked about here at length, and then the 30th of August and Dorian will probably look and feel similar with respect to the lack of negligence. I know sometimes citizens aren't satisfied with that because their insurance coverage is not helping them in a way that they're looking for, or they have a deductible, or they just are looking for more support than we can provide. So we've been trying to communicate as effectively as we can to mitigate and to educate and to encourage people to utilize their own resources to prepare themselves for these events and to work with their insurance companies. With respect to our infrastructure, admittedly, as with a lot of infrastructure in North America, it was sized and designed and performs at the level in which it was created in the time that it was created. So there's full transparency. There's no hidden agendas here. Council and the town will be challenged to modernize their systems on a go-forward basis, and that's why we rely on infrastructure grants from federal and provincial government and our own sources to do those things. So we had these issues on West Main Street in the early 2000s, and we're having it on Condon specifically now, and perhaps even Millbrook and in that area, in Crescent. So there are some cyclical things that are happening with respect to the environment, but there's certainly an increased intensity and volume in the water that we have to manage. So on a go-forward basis, a new engineer and you folks will have to, continue to revisit the infrastructure that you have and prioritize, how you're going to try to modernize your system. So finally, on that issue, I encourage you to direct, any correspondence our way, staff's way, and we'll try to facilitate a response if it's warranted, or just a process for the citizens to follow with respect to recovery on that event. So that would be my report. And again, I expect in October there'll be more, but it may not look a whole lot different. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the CAO on that report? All right, moving on to your next.
Okay. So this issue, Council, is something that you initiated very quickly, and at the staff, we certainly thank you for that, and I'm sure the citizens do as well in the Condon area. So I'll just read the report and stay on script here. The town of Kemptville acknowledges that some properties, yards, and even basements on and near Condon Avenue were significantly impacted by flooding immediately after a rainfall event in June of 2019. And I would add to that August 30th and then September 7th, as Jennifer says here. The background: during the July 29th meeting of council approved the proposed Condon Avenue stormwater infrastructure upgrade up to $200,000. as a late addition to the 2019-20 Capital Works Plan. Due to the urgency associated with the infrastructure upgrade, the town of Kemptville accelerated the procurement process and sought proposals from contractors on a short-term basis. Discussion section there, Able Engineering evaluated the submitted bids for this project and gave a recommendation for completing this work. So as we traditionally do, you can see the budget impact there is $200,000, which we've already noted we budgeted for. We have an attached piece of correspondence, which I'll refer to quickly. Again, the letterhead is from Able Engineering, and it's signed by senior partner Sandy Dewar, and his recommendation is that the town award this project to Howard Little Excavating. And I will formalize that recommendation and read that Town Council recommend the following project: the Town of Kemptville Capital Works, Condon Avenue, to the low bidder, Howard Little Excavating Limited, at a price contract in the amount of $187,450.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded that council advise you recommend approving the tender for the Town of Kemptville 2019 Capital Works Condon Avenue to Howard Little Excavating Limited in the amount of $187,450, HST included, to the council meeting on the 30th of September 2019. Just, Councillor Gerard?
Thank you, Worship. Mark, can you just explain it? I know we talked about it briefly, but can you just explain exactly what's going to happen?
Sure.
And part two, are the engineers and everybody confident that doing? I wouldn't want to put in $200,000 worth of new infrastructure to have it be overwhelmed again and torn up again and.
Yep. Yep. So no guarantees.
Mm-hmm.
But the engineers, so the way they approached it is they look at a square area of land of which is impacted, or which collects the water, and eventually it does find itself at the end of Condon. So any of you that are familiar with the area, there's a significant gorge, and Kemptville is hills and gorges, and we call some of those spaces that, gorges and ravines and so forth. So they have taken and calculated the square area that is affected by rainfall. They've calculated the 101-year scenario, the new one, and
so it has. Sorry, but it has increased from 30 years ago. Or?
Right. So the best forecasts and projections that they can do. So they take that square area and that volume of water and the intensity, and it turns into a number. And then that number and volume of water needs to go through a pipe. And then that is dictated by, and then that volume dictates the size of the pipe. So the size of the pipe they're installing is engineered to handle the capacity. Now there's a few other things that affect capacity, and we all know it and see it, and that's debris, and it's amazing what a bucket of leaves will do to a pipe and a catch basin. So we've incorporated through the engineer's design a system similar to West Main Street, where there'll be a concrete structure at the end of Condon where the water is channeled into with a screen, and then the ability to lift that screen to clean up debris, and even a little catchment area below the surface area where we can take a piece of machinery and pull out rocks and dirt and so forth as they accumulate. So that's ideal, and that should work under certain conditions. I would say the problem that we're facing is debris. So when you're dealing with natural areas that feed into mechanical structures, you have this contamination and you have this thing that happens. So we are investigating how we may be able to deal with that debris. So it's one thing to deal with the rainfall and the volume, but with the debris. So one of the issues right now is the lack of debris. So debris actually assists with the slowing of the process when the water falls and so forth. We've essentially cleaned this meandering channel out. We haven't, Mother Nature has, with the volume and intensity. So probably the secondary infrastructure consideration is either by natural ways or person-made mechanisms, how do we deal with upstream and try to mitigate that rush when it comes. So is that the 101 version?
Yep, and the engineers are confident that what's below Condon can handle sort. Okay.
So, correct. So I know we discussed this, but it is important to revisit that. So the short term, the first phase of this is to deal with the pipe in the infrastructure in Condon. We have a bigger pipe that is leading into a smaller pipe, if you consider that. And the smaller pipe is Park Street. So you'll expect probably in next year's capital budget to either enlarge that pipe, or we're talking about a second pipe. So instead of sending it down Park Street and into Veterans Lane and even into the ballpark area, we're considering a diversion westward and down, we'll say the driveway of Memorial Park down towards the maintenance shed. So you may have more capacity downstream from a piping point of view. But again, back to the fiscal realities of modernizing everything. Step by step, we feel this will alleviate the stress on Condon. If we had the same conditions, you'll probably see stress on Park Street. But we can deal with stress on Park Street. It'll go down the street and into the parking lot. That's quite acceptable. But to take it a step further, I think you'll see next year they recommend a second diversion.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? Question? All those, oh, never mind. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next.
Communication report, Your Worship. Again, I've been kind of just highlighting that and noting to council. It's been in your package, and some of the high points there are there with respect to website access. I guess this would be the appropriate time to highlight the fact that our website is up. And I know we want to congratulate the team on the work that they had to do. It's fun but monotonous maybe at times. You know, you're looking at every page and every section, and you just can't get it perfect. So we're happy to receive respectful feedback on the website. If you see something that is out of sorts, you know, Councillor Andrews' bio with the deputy mayor's face, something like that, might need an adjustment. But it is modern and very social media appropriate, and very proud of it to date. Again, it's not without further review and amendments and adjustments, so please pass those along as you see them. Okay?
Any questions on communications? None? All right, moving on.
Okay. Your Worship, so my report. Valley Waste, without getting into details, it's been well reported, and you folks are very familiar with the background on this, but legal action has been initiated by the parties of Valley Waste, the remaining parties against Annapolis County. King's Transit, there's nothing to report at this time, at least from my office. Police Commission, nothing to report. Union negotiations, happy to report that CUPE has concluded negotiations with an agreement, and that was signed on August the 15th. Key compensation related changes include a 2.1% increase in wages per year over the next 4 years, and a 0.1% increase in pension contributions. Again, it's a 4-year term. Members of the local are to be commended for their continued efforts to bargain respectfully and efficiently. I think we had 2 bargaining sessions, 3.5, 4 days. APA, or the Police Collective Agreement, remains outstanding. Articles associated with compensation have also been offered to that local, equal to what was offered to CUPE. Remains outstanding, and I hope that both parties, on a go-forward basis, will be able to return to the table soon and hopefully finalize an agreement. So the next two, Your Worship, we previously had on the agenda, but we took the liberty to put it in my report, as they do not require the approval of council, as 2 of the other items do. So either under my authority or later in the meeting, Director Kroll, the town clerk. So by authority of the Municipal Government Act, MGA Part 2, Section 33, the clerk's responsibilities are defined and further identified as a position that is designated by the Chief Administrative Officer. So my current authorization, or Deb's later in the agenda, we appoint Deb as the clerk for the town of Kentville. The next position is the responsible officer, which we would refer to it as the FOIPOP. FOIPOP officer is very similar, and of course FOIPOP is Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy. By authority under the Municipal Government Act, MGA Part 20, Section 461, it defines the responsible officer as the CAO when the town has one of those things. By default, Deborah Kroll will be the responsible officer once she is appointed interim CAO. Responsible by designation. I don't know if by behavior. We will see. And I may be taking some thunder out of something later on in the agenda, but I have to find places where these things fit.
That's good.
The Kentville Business Park continues to attract interest from businesses looking to relocate. In a lot of cases, our commercial realtor and staff have revised the marketing approach, which has supported the increased interest. You know, it's very regular that we're having tire kickers out there and offers. So I hope that continues, and it's certainly an area of growth and nice to see. The Culkin Building, lots to talk about that this evening. The building remains for sale. With the security of having a second tenant at market value, the interest in the building from buyers seems to have intensified, and you'll have some decisions to make based on that later this evening. Drop-ins have been high for me. Social media is seasonal and whatnot. With respect to my meetings and attendance there, you will see that. I think I would say probably the highlights are the storm-related activities, both internally and externally. You know, another highlight is Ocean Crisp Apple Company and receiving the funding that they did to support their operations. So, you know, the business park continues to be an environment that, ooh, this is really bad. Weathers many storms economically. You know, we've seen lots of changes out there, and when buildings get repurposed and redesigned, you know, often for something very different than they were, you know, built to accommodate, that's a very positive sign for our area in the park as a place to be. So, and finally, at this time, I wish to thank the current council as well as those who I've served during my time with the town. There have been many challenges and successes that have required healthy debate and thoughtful decision-making over the years. Thank you for your dedication and courage to serve the community. We'll have lots of time for this, hopefully this week. I want to thank the community for their engagement, commitment, and interaction through the service delivery and decision-making processes impacting the town. The citizens of Kentville, as well as the business community, have traditionally held us to a high standard of care and responsibility associated with their community. And, you know, that's generally a favorable thing. I use the example of condensation on the glass at the arena. You know, we receive calls on that kind of stuff. And at times you go, oh, my God. But it really is, I choose to look at it as an expression of care and service that, you know, we've been able to provide. So when things aren't exactly as they've been, we hear about it. And that's okay. And I think that keeps our standard high. And you as the resource provider and staff as a service, you know, deliverer, that's a good relationship with the community. And finally, it's been a privilege to serve with past and present staff of the town. They are people who from day to day listen to the concerns of the community, strategize their response, and deliver services and projects to a very, very high standard. Most importantly, that it conduct themselves with care of the citizen and community as their lead motivation. So I say thank you to all staff, past and present. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. All right, I think we've got a few questions here. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mark. It's hard to ask a tough question after you close with that. I've been asked several times, and so I understand the value of relationships, but why do we use only one realtor?
Oh, sure. So the last 2 times, I believe, we have actually sought quotations
Okay.
from local. So the procurement process, essentially anything under $50,000, regardless of what it is, has to be tendered publicly. Anything under that, it's our responsibility to seek prices and quotations. So I'm confident we had 3 when we awarded the last one.
Okay.
And yeah, as I recall, it actually was the lowest with respect to the commission rate. But of course, you know, with being the incumbent, there is familiarity, admittedly, as there with all service providers. But we revisit that from time to time to make sure everyone has a fair and equitable opportunity. So that person could contact me. They may have been someone that we did approach, or maybe they got missed. I'm not sure, but we'd be happy to talk about it. And on that front as well, they all have termination dates. I don't think we have, each individual property has an agreement with the realtor, and none of them would exceed a year. Some are 6 months that we revisit, so there's continual opportunity.
That's great.
For that, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make, as a personal note, thank Mark for your service here. I've been elected for over 14 years, and like a lot of the staff I'm looking at here, you will be missed. I think we miss you already. I know Friday the 13th, your last day coming up. Why is it that date, the 13th? But, you know, I mean, how many CAOs will actually, you know, in Nova Scotia will be putting out sandbags and fighting Hurricane Dorian at 2 or 3 in the morning? Mark Phillips. How many CEOs are out 6, 7 o'clock in the morning during the Canada Cup putting out barricades? CEO Mark Phillips. So we're going to miss you. Your replacement will have a tough set of boots to fill, and best of luck. But you're not far away. You're only in Hants County, so, and we know where you live. But thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Eric was before me. So, Mark, I just want to say, you know, being somebody new to municipal politics, sort of getting my feet wet early on, your wisdom and guidance has been invaluable to me. I will miss you, but I wish you every success in your new endeavors. And Windsor West Hants is very fortunate to have you. So thank you again very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Mark, we've had many talks, and you know how I feel. I'm certainly going to miss consulting you and talking to you and having your ear, and I appreciate that. I've appreciated it these last 4 years, and I think that the municipality of West Hants Windsor couldn't have picked a finer man to take control down there, and I know that the province of Nova Scotia wants that amalgamation to succeed, and I don't think that they could have picked anybody better to make sure that it will succeed. So I wish you all the best. I know you'll enjoy the challenge, and that's how I feel, and you know how I feel.
Thank you. I do. Thank you.
Councillor Pulsifer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think everyone has echoed what I was going to say anyway, so I won't repeat it all over again, but just want you to know how you've always had a open door, and always we all felt comfortable coming and you know, pouring out some troubles or concerns or questions over the 3 years. So we will miss you, but as they said, you're not too far away in case we need to have a social chat of some sort. Anyway, best of luck, Mark.
Thank you.
We will miss you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Gerard.
I didn't know we were doing this tonight. I would have brought cake or. Absolutely. I think Windsor West Hants is going to be very fortunate to have you, Mark, and you will certainly be missed. If for nothing else than your personality and being able to calm things when things get excited. But I wish you the best of luck down there.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
All
Lots
right.
of agenda, Your Worship. You should
Yeah,
get on to this stuff.
I know.
That's right.
Get on with it. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Are there any further questions for the CAO's report? None? All right. We will accept the motion to adopt the staff reports as presented? Thank you. Seconder? Second. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that staff reports be adopted as presented. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to our unfinished business. CEO Phillips, you have a report for us on the multi-purpose complex strategy?
So, Your Worship, these next two agenda items, I, regrettably have not fulfilled my obligations or your expectations. I will offer a few words regarding them, starting with the multi-purpose complex, which is one of your priorities and something the Parks and Recreation Department, I'm sure, will be very heavily involved with, along with your new CAO, in trying to achieve that goal. That being said, I wrote a few comments just about it, and I guess what I would say is you have a lot of the right ingredients in place to make, I guess if you're baking a cake, for lack of a better analogy, you have a regional recreation needs assessment. You should not look past that. It has a lot of value in it. It gauges the broader community with respect to recreation. Specifically, it has a section that references a model, a governance model that could be developed to speak about regional recreation facilities. So you have something, please don't let it sit on the shelf. That is a tool that should be used to engage the other municipal units. It's a multi-purpose facility today. It could be something different down the road. An equestrian facility, who knows what it is. Whatever it is that's regional in nature, you have a recommendation and you should use that. You have a community group, which I understand today is rejuvenated. At the Rotary Club, you had a presentation of which you have some new members on that community group. So whether it was the Jeff Zettlers of the world and the Kate Siemens who started it, some of those folks have resigned or may come back in another form. You have new, I understand, citizens interested and engaged. That's an energy you need to harness and use. And then finally, the funding. Kentville does have some capacity to do something on its own, but I guess I would caution you a bit on that. I think something regional in nature warrants the participation of other municipalities and the provincial and federal government. Other communities have been successful, sometimes by political means, so I don't know where we are in that cycle with respect to having that light shined on us. We know the Pictou examples and Mr. McKay, and we know the Windsor West Hants examples, and to be quite honest, the indoor soccer facility in its day. We benefited from, I would say, a provincial or a federal focus on our community. But it is, I would suggest, Council's responsibility to be the lead on those municipal partners and provincial and federal funding sources along with the community. So, and then ultimately defining what regional means. If you decide just to replace one sheet of ice, that's something very different than a pool and a climbing wall and a cultural center and maybe even some of these other activities that we've heard from the arts and cultural folks earlier this evening. There's certainly, the sky is the limit on that, but there is also fiscal challenges associated with that. So regrettably, I don't have a silver bullet for you other than to say you are well positioned, and I think you have a lot of ingredients in place that would support your ambition to pursue something like that in our community. So that would be that one, Your Worship.
All right.
The next item it would be the deed transfer tax, and I could relate these two projects, although I would not want to shine a single light of purpose on a multi-purpose facility. But you have a fairly extensive report from us, and I just referenced it. It came to you in June that you could revisit with respect to the deed transfer tax. I think some of the words we use in that report is around taxation and any kind of area rates, that you take what you need. I think Kentville has traditionally done that with respect to taxation, that we have traditionally taken what we need. And when we look at operating budgets and capital budgets and the accuracy in which we've been able to achieve over the decades, that I think is a reflection of council and staff only taking what they need. But a multi-purpose facility, or even some of these significant infrastructure renewal projects that you're going to have, it will require additional funding. So in the absence of the provincial or federal government, or even as a stimulus for the federal and provincial government, municipalities have to be ready. And a deed transfer tax is one mechanism in which you can use. There will be challenges from the real estate community and whatnot, and that's fair. That's part of the public process. Good debate, good engagement will help you make that decision around deed transfer tax if you decide to pursue it. One thing that I would say about it, and I know it's in that report in June, I would not recommend that you use a deed transfer tax to support what it is that we do day to day. I would suggest, are in you are right sized. You are taxing people appropriately to do what it is that we do. But significant infrastructure requires more funding. So, and then it becomes general revenue. We've seen that. It doesn't matter what level of government. Once something becomes general revenue, then it just becomes that and not what its purpose, what it was designed for. So as you embark on the consideration of deed transfer tax, I would encourage you to keep that in mind, that you try to use it for new things and things that you otherwise would not have been able to afford if you decide to go forward. I think the citizenry has been positive in response to getting something in return. We've increased the tax rate here in the last probably 8 years, and not each year, but over the last 8 years, we have seen increases. This particular council has seen 2 tax increases, and the response has been minimal. So that means something. People aren't paying attention and they don't care, or they're seeing value. And when they see value in the return, whether it's service or capital projects, I think it's tolerable and accepted. And other municipalities are seeing that around the province. So keeping those things in mind as you move forward, good luck with that discussion, because it will be spirited, I'm sure. But if you keep the community in mind, I'm sure you'll get through it. So thank you.
All right. Next, we have policy revision.
Policy revision, I'll just read
Yep.
the script here and
Yep.
see where you're at. Nova Scotia Accessibility Act, passed in September 2017, sets a goal of accessible province by 2030. One of the first accessibility standards to be developed is the built environment directly impacting the municipal sector. This work is underway through the provincially led Standard Development Committee. The background here is the policy implication of creating this committee is with policy statement G57, committees of council. This should be revised to reflect the development of this new committee of council and new terms of reference. At the July 29th, 2019 meeting of council, it was moved that council approve in principle the terms of reference for the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and further to amend the policy statement G57, committees of council, to include the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So the policy implications are noted there, the attachments are noted, and you are now, we are putting forward a recommendation that council amend policy statement G57, committees of council, to include the Accessibility Advisory Committee as an ad hoc committee of council.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that CAC recommend approval of the to council on the 30th of September 2019 to adopt the amendment to policy G57, committees of council for the Accessibility Advisory Committee as an ad hoc committee. Is there any discussion? Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you.
Worship, just on that as well, I'm assuming now that, of course, this will take approval at the September council meeting, but your schedule for council appointments is October, November, so that gives staff enough time to recruit citizens and whatnot for the citizen appointments as well as council time.
Excellent.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, moving on. King's Transit request for an operating reserve.
Did you want me to read the script here?
Sure.
Okay. In July 2019, Mr. Glenn Bannon made a presentation to council regarding the creation of an operating reserve for the King's Transit Authority. During the July 8th, 2019 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, CAO Phillips reviewed the request by King's Transit Authority from member municipalities to enable the creation of an operating reserve. It was moved and carried that Council defer the King's Transit Operating Reserve to the next Council Advisory Committee meeting, which is, of course, today. The recommendation for your consideration is that Council approve the request for the King's Transit Authority for the creation of an operating reserve for $83,000, with the Town of Kentville's share of this reserve totaling $16,600 from the 2019-20 operating budget.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that CAC recommends approval to Council on the 30th of September 2019, the request by King's Transit Authority for creation of an operating reserve of $83,000, with the Town of Kentville's share of this reserve totaling $16,600 from the 2019-2020 operating budget. Discussion, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So I know when Mr. Bannon came in, we spent that lunchtime with him. We talked about a number of things. Do we know if anybody else has contributed to this reserve, County of Kings or?
Only Kings. I sent him an email today to confirm. Only Kings County has approved it. Wolfville and Berwick have not.
So they've not approved it, or they've voted against it?
They voted against it, yes. So the motion failed for them. So
Okay.
only Kings County has approved.
And how
this.
much did Kings County approve? What's their
They-
percentage? Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, okay.
70%, 80%.
And was that conditional upon, or no?
I would suggest it would have to be, because all parties would have
To agree under the
Right.
IMS. Okay, yeah.
Suppose the council.
Thank you.
I think, Your Worship, if I could.
Sure.
It's just a fundamental question whether these arm's length authorities, of which we do have agreements with, what do they need to operate? In simple terms, if they can't pay the bills or they have a deficit, you folks are responsible, and you will pay your share.
Yeah, I
So if
understand
you
that.
need it, come get it. And you need to be responsible with the allocation, but that mechanism is in place for them. You are that backstop in the event that they have a deficit. They've expressed concerns around operating cash flow and schedule of payment from other folks. I can only speak for ourselves. We pay the invoice when it arrives. So whether other units are delayed, I'm not sure, what the fare process is, or the collection of revenue, and so forth. So the other, I think, concern that I would express at this time is, King's Transit does have a little bit of a history here now with respect to fluctuations in their operation and their financial accounting processes. So I would say they've rightened the ship, and we're seeing improved performance and reporting. But having an operating reserve of any sort is certainly advisable, but it does give them some free rein that they might not have otherwise if they are projecting a deficit and need to come back to you for assistance. So it's hard to argue against an operating reserve, because it is an appropriate thing for most organizations to have, but they do kind of have a unique, as does Valley Waste, have a unique mechanism when faced with a deficit that, as a partner, we are responsible for making that up. So,
Your Worship.
Certainly.
If I might just add to that, when timing of payments from a partner becomes an issue, or a partner decides they are simply not going to pay, this also would provide a little additional breathing room, and you've seen some experience with that. So Mark's done a good job of laying out the pros and cons. I suggest that's one of the things you should keep in mind. I haven't looked at whether or not this requires a change to the intermunicipal service agreement, but if it does, then we'll have to look to the provisions of that to determine whether or not this change can even occur without Wolfville and Berwick. But certainly your vote tonight goes a long way in determining where this might end up if there's pressure to be brought on other partners.
Is there any other discussion? I guess from my perspective, I still hold a confidential report that was put together with regards to how the board was conducting their business, or King's Transit, and there were serious issues with the manner in which the accounting was being done, and these errors led to fines that they had to pay to the federal government for things not being on time. And the number one recommendation was that they had to address gaps in accounting skill set. So they weren't minding the money very well, and from our perspective, to give them another $16,000 to fetter away on fines and fees, to me just doesn't make sense at this point in time. Until that they can demonstrate that they've got their house in order, I don't feel that we should be giving them any further extra money. If you recall, last year we had to fund an extra $53,000 because they were under budget by that amount, and the year before we had to fund their under budget. The other thing as well is that the town of Kentville always pays its invoice in advance, so that they actually have our money in the bank to pay for that month's expenses. So it's not like we're paying in arrears, that they have to hold it. But this has been part of the problem, and as well, they have used capital assets to run their operations, and they didn't know the difference. So I don't feel that we should be giving them more money to not figure out how to spend it. Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Risha. Councillor Andrew, you are a representative with King's Transit. Do you have anything to say about this? I mean, you're at the table. And we get information from you, if not from Mr. Bannon. So what would you like to share with us?
Well, we haven't sat down for a bit, but I'm conflicted in it because I agree. Could I ask Mayor Snow, with the confidential report, what's the time frame?
May 15th. Oh, the time
frame that represents that report.
Up until that, they were trying to put together the documents for the audit. So it would have been the 2018-19 audit, and they couldn't put the financial documents together for an audit because it didn't make sense, so they couldn't hand them over to the auditor. So they brought in a special consultant who put together this report and put together the documents for the 2018-19 audit. And she provided this report to the board on May 15th, 2019.
Okay. I have a lot of confidence in that King's Transit's in a good place in terms of financial oversight now. Glenn is terrific, and the conflict for me is this history is there. My first, it's been 3 years I've been with King's Transit, and the very first meeting was an introduction to the mess that was far more severe than what we're looking at right now, that had happened for several years. So it's when you meet Glenn, and you've all met him, he's personable, he's good, he knows the business. If there was ever a time I would just say, if there was ever a time in my short window, he is an expert. He really truly is, and so I think that they're in good hands. So in that sense, I have a lot of confidence. On the other hand, I think our CAO has said, if the authority is in trouble at some point, they have the ability to come to go to their partners and seek funding in other ways. So I'm kind of conflicted about it, and a lot of it's based on just the high level of competence that I see from Glenn, and also, and forgive me, I can't recall her name, the person
Karen,
and
yeah.
has Karen, yeah, and has kind of walked us through a very complex process and had to unravel a real significant mess. I guess I'm going to vote the way I see that I should vote based on what I feel and know. I wish I could offer you more. The truth is the history is pretty ugly, and I'm hopeful that we're going in a different direction. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Again, I think this is a restructuring. It's a business case, and again, as the CEO said, if they're not looked after, there could be implications. A lot of residents of Kentville use our transit service, so we're gonna, for the sake of $16,000, say no, but that's just one man's opinion.
All right. Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, just if Mayor Snow could direct a question to Director Kroll. So in terms of if they do come up with a shortfall, we do have the reserves to move some money their way.
If there is a deficit position, yes, the town can offset the deficit position of King's
Okay.
Transit Authority at the end of 2020.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Is there anything further? The question is on the recommendation that council approve a request by King's Transit Authority for the creation of an operating reserve for $83,000, with the town of Kentville's share of this reserve totaling $16,600 from the 2019-2020 operating budget. Motion, voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is defeated.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item is capital, I think. Capital project. I won't go down through the list other than to say, the bulk of the work is underway or planning. Engineering and public works is obviously the largest portion of the capital, and very confident. We've been, as I reported earlier, meeting with Able on a weekly basis. And I expect tomorrow they'll have a draft tender for more or less the balance of capital work, which they and we would say the piping related issues and things that are non-asphalt. We strategically put asphalt out first, which was cumulatively about $700,000, and that work is soon to start. Basically, they told us when they finish the 101, then they'll be moving into Kentville to have that work finished by October 15th. So when we tender the balance of work, the sidewalk going out to Bonavista's second or first entrance, whichever way you're coming, in the east end sidewalk renewal and the various other projects, that will be tendered and is less sensitive to weather and asphalt plants, and we're confident that that work can be carried out. And then, of course, Condon, as noted earlier. So, sorry not to highlight too many recreation projects, but that's where we're at, and we're confident we're moving through the program.
All right. Councillor Gerard.
Just a quick question about, I noticed stuff's going to start happening, and I think Rachel even mentioned it about River Street.
Oh, yes, okay.
When can we expect?
So we have I'll call it an intimate meeting with the property owners on River Street, just so that they can get a higher level of confidence in how much the dike will impact their properties. The property most impacted, and I think I can say this, is the Legion. So the natural elevations along there are actually pretty favorable, meaning we don't need as much dike, but the Legion does. So that's the area most significantly impacted. So we'll have this meeting with those property owners on Wednesday night, and hopefully they're all in favor and see this as a positive thing, and we'll do the survey work and do the easements, and the work will be carried out. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
I'm sorry, I had a question from way back earlier to the CAO report.
All right.
Somebody made me aware today that Windsor is doing a storm debris cleanup. So the town established a curbside storm debris cleanup for property owners affected by Hurricane Dorian. And the question came to me by 2 or 3 people if the town of Kentville was contemplating doing that.
So we haven't yet operationally, and not to, describe why those folks are doing it. But
Sure.
for example, Windsor West Hants does not have a transfer station.
Correct,
So
yeah.
they have to, residents have to move whatever material it is down to Cognagan. I should get to know that place.
Yeah.
So it's a significant burden,
Yes.
challenge for
Okay.
many reasons.
Okay.
Berwick, Wolfville, perhaps. Maybe it's just higher duty of care. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Our folks, I'm sure, would love to have that offering, but I
I know.
think resiliency,
Yes.
along with the comfort center, those types of things are, I think, things that we should encourage on the front end.
Yes.
And see how folks are coping and evaluate after that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any questions pertaining? All right, moving on to correspondence. All correspondence received by the mayor and council at our public email addresses with regards to matters before this council will be considered public correspondence unless there's a specific request not to make it public, in which case the information provided will not be part of the information data used to make a decision. All right, CAO.
So, Your Worship, I'm going to kind of look for council here, a little bit of guidance, because I want to be fair to each author. But as we have with previous authors and folks that have sent us correspondence, if it's not an issue facing you today with respect to decision-making, we have inventoried those pieces of correspondence, and I think we did at the July or CAC or council meeting, that we assure those authors that we are inventorying these correspondence, and when and if the issue comes forward for your debate, they are there, they're recorded, and they come forward. So unless the majority of you would like for me to read these, I would suggest that we continue with the same process of recognizing the author. In this first piece, it's a Sherry Harvey, and she's certainly, her subject matter is affordable housing. Sorry, audience, I'll magnify that. It's affordable housing, but there is not a decision here this evening specifically about that project or that property owner for your consideration. So it'll be inventoried and cataloged and brought forward if required. I'm sorry, Vander Honing, Shelby, very much the same in the sense that they are speaking to the 118 property and project, as with previous authors in other meetings and here this evening. So Shelby's correspondence will be received and whatnot. Now the next one from Brenda Wood is a little bit of a hybrid, Your Worship, and I think probably for the author, there are components that are not specific to 118 Oakdean, and you as a council have a responsibility to hear and perhaps debate and deal with these things as they come forward. So I would suggest, and I hope that the author, I'm sorry, let me just refer to the author, Mrs. Brenda Wood, feels that my representation of her correspondence is fair and equitable. But the first paragraph really speaks quite specifically about 118 Oakdean, which I would treat in the same manner in which I have other pieces of correspondence. The rest of the correspondence is quite specific to her feelings about the conduct of Councillor John Andrew. And again, issues of code of conduct for council do not warrant in camera. You are not staff. Staff issues would. You are not. So I will review what I feel is the highlights in relation to her correspondence and Councillor Andrew. So I'll start here in the second paragraph. What I do struggle to understand, however, is how any council member elected to a position of responsibility can publicly and verbally attack other council members, both during council meeting and through social media, by the name the integrity of one councillor in particular. I would expect anyone elected to represent the voice of those in the community to follow a higher level of integrity and behavior. When I watched the recordings of the last town council meeting, I was surprised and disappointed to hear Councillor Andrew express his embarrassment at being associated with the council and criticize other councillors as deliberately attempting to undermine his proposed development of 118 Oakdean Avenue. When I later read the following statement posted on various Facebook pages, I was not only surprised and disappointed, I was shocked that the councillor would show such public disrespect for his fellow councillors by posting or allowing someone to post in his name such criticism of his fellow councillors, calling them bad apples and referring to their behavior as antics, as if he is referring to the acting out behavior of children or youth rather than adults elected by residents of the town of Kemptville to serve them on this council. She does reference and quote something that she is referencing as being online. That's not for me to say one way or the other, but I will just reference that. Continuing with her words, I recognize that Councillor Andrew is emotionally and financially invested in the development of 118 Oakdean. However, this proposal has been presented before council. Excuse me, folks, I will skip that. It's more specific to 118 Oakdean. As I'm quite aware that public organizations have a code of conduct, I have reviewed the Town of Kentville Policy Statement G16 Code of Conduct for elected officials. I've also viewed the copy of the Statement of Commitment to Town of Kentville Code of Conduct signed by Councillor Andrew on October 30th, 2017, where he commits to adhere to that code of conduct as well as the Nova Scotia Human Rights and Cyber Safety Act. The Town of Kentville Policy Statement G16 Code of Conduct for elected officials says, and it's stated there, I will not read it, only for the essence of time, and it's something you're all familiar with as a council. Picking up her words as well, the same Town of Kentville Policy Statement G16 Code of Conduct for elected officials says, and she references the code and its various sections. As a resident of the town of Kentville, I expect better behavior from my elected officials, and according to the document that he signed and committed to follow, Council Andrew is in breach of not only Town of Kentville Policy Statement G16 Code of Conduct for elected officials, but also the Nova Scotia Human Rights and possibly the Cyber Safety Act as well. It is sad that in an effort to create affordable housing that a councillor would refuse to listen to concerned people who already live in the community, those who struggle every day with the challenges of life in the highly diverse and inclusive north end of Kentville. It is even more disappointing that the same councillor would attack those who have listened to us, belittling them and demeaning them for fulfilling their responsibility to respect or concerned voices. What I also find disturbing is that by allowing and thereby encouraging the negative and hostile comments on Facebook pages affiliated with Open Arms and 118 Oakdean Project about the current residents who live in the north end of Kentville, an atmosphere of hostility and divisiveness is being created that will not change should this project go ahead, and gets into a little bit more of the project. So, Your Worship, I hope that represents Brenda's intent around code of conduct. You have had that in your package, Council, for your consideration. Councillor Andrew, that may be difficult to hear, but it's our responsibility, I think, to relay what a citizen or citizens are saying. So, for your consideration, that's the correspondence, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Associated with that. The next piece is a thank you, I believe. Just give me one moment here to magnify it. Dear Town of Kentville, thank you for offering me the Town of Kentville Student Bursary. This bursary gives students like me the opportunity to do much more than solely attend post-secondary. These bursaries mean so much to our community, and I'm extremely grateful for the support of my town. And it's signed by David Archibald. The next piece of correspondence is a letter through the County of Kings Planning, and you're probably the best source,
All
Your
right,
Worship, to
thank you. So as you will recall, at our July meeting, I requested, I guess, your support to proceed with sending a letter to the municipality of County of Kings as they were doing their MPS and LUB, looking or highlighting some changes for our source water system here in Kentville. We had a meeting, and it was determined that through education and signage that we were meeting exactly the requirements that we had, and although some of their words were not quite the same as ours, the sense of what they had written in their new MPS and LUB was going to provide us with the necessary protection of our well field. and we're going to have some signage put up so that people realize where our well field actually is, and that they are in a drinking water area, so that if there's spills or that type of thing, it will be identified. So that's a closed loop on that one. 3 letters to get us back to the fact that we have a water system.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next piece of correspondence is from Kings Point to Point, and they just thank council for your ongoing support for both the operation and capital budget, and I believe the financial statements up to March 31st, 2019 are also included for your review and consideration. Next piece of correspondence is from Robinson's Cannabis, who reside in the business park. So it just notes here that Robinson Cannabis has notice, I guess, from the government that pursuant to Section 35 of the Cannabis Act regulations, that Robinson's has received an amendment to its license under the Cannabis Act in the second phase, which is the 1,732 square meters of Robinson's operation is now licensed, bringing the total allowed area to conduct cannabis activities to 2,554 square meters. So that's just giving us note. On a water point of view, we are seeing an increased demand, and is actually a consideration during this storm, not only for Robinson Cannabis, but our pie makers out in the business park. So it's a positive thing with respect to service delivery, and positive with respect to the industry, that those folks are doing what they thought they would do and said they would do economically. And I don't think their product's on the shelf yet, but soon to be seen. Okay. The next piece of correspondence is Medic Monday. So, Your Worship, this came in August 23rd, and just making note that the province recognized last Monday in September, the last Monday in September, as Medic Monday to honor more than 1,100 paramedics who serve across Nova Scotia, and they had requested that we raise their EHS flag at Town Hall as a token of appreciation for the dedicated and high-skilled paramedics who work in the province. So we haven't typically done that on case-by-case basis, but that's certainly something you could look on a go-forward basis. There's probably other equally respectful ways that you can recognize that community on a go-forward basis, but certainly a flag is something we could entertain, but it's not something we have done in the past for different groups. But I leave that for your consideration or feedback. The next piece of correspondence is a regional emergency management organization, and is the author in the audience? Yeah, it just highlights the timelines associated with REMO. So 4 municipalities who we are all familiar with, ourselves, Kentville, Berwick, Wolfville, Kings County, undertook a 2-year trial of the Kings County Regional Emergency Organization back in April 1st of 2018. And it shows the various stages and activities, and we see Dan frequently. You see the enthusiasm. I don't know if he does storm dances or not, but seems like we're experiencing more since he's come on board. So, yeah, so so I think just a review of this relationship is something before councils and CAOs on a go-forward basis, as the expiry date is approaching, and with respect to the work. And I will certainly take this time to thank Dan for his work in this 2-year terms. He's brought us all to an equal level that we may not have had before, particularly in the area of training and looking at things on a regional level. You know, I can certainly speak that we're very isolated and we serve our citizens, but should something be very regional in nature, we're well prepared and have a process in place to, you know, share resources and decision making around the REMO approach, and it certainly is more efficient in the most efficient way. What it looks like, you know, on a go-forward basis is something that you'll have to revisit as you approach April of 2020. The next piece is Right to Know Week. So this is a request, I guess, from the Ombudsman's, I think it's from the Ombudsman's office, That is International Right to Know Day on September 28th, and the week of September 23 to 29 has been designated as Right to Know Week. And various municipalities are doing things such as proclamations. So we haven't in the past, but it's something that you certainly can consider, or again, through social media, a way to promote awareness around the right to know and the whole FOIPOP process. And although I know this is not specific to FOIPOP, just around citizens' awareness around that. So that, Your Worship, is the correspondence.
All right, thank you very much. We need to take a break because we're running out of time on Facebook, and it automatically logs off, so we have to reset that. You may need 1 minute, but others may need more than a minute. So if anyone needs a break, we'll take a 5-minute break here, and just if you could shut the recording off and the volume, all clear.